Brisbane District Council for our end of financial year council meeting. Before we start, I am going to ask the lovely Padre to open with Karakia for us. Thank you, Padre.
Nare he hono re prori ki te runga rawa ngā maunga rongo whinu ngā whakaarpai ki a tāte katoa, ngā tāngata katoa. Nare re hei mua ki a mātai, ua hei tuhu ki a mātai mai kōpo e no ki e whakakahe a mātai, ki e pai karoria e a mātai mai katoa, he me tīmata, he me mahi. He mea whako oti I rota I a koe te mea atwātia nei e koe. Koe krai kuki tō mātai ariki, Amen.
Thank you, Padre.
Tāti tēnā tātou. Ki ngā tātou e whakawhaiti mai tēnei ata. Me te mōhio anō ngā kaupapa waingano I a tātou. Me ki ka haere, ka tau, ka tonu I runga tonu te rangi māria me te whakapono. Engari me mahara tonu tātou ki o tātou nei mate. Ngā mea ko wehe atu I roto I ngā rā tata ko taha kenei. Tātou hoki I tai atu I te tai o te ata. Engari, wai hoki tātou ke tai ki te tai o te ahi ahi. Engari, hei wainga nui ke oti tunu ai ngā kaupapa. Hara mai rā, piki mai rā ki roto, ki runga hoki o Awarua. Tēnei kāinga e whakaritea nei, te wā I hangai ai, tēnei wāhi. Hei wāhi hui, hei wāhi wānanga, hei wāhi kōrero, hei wāhi whakawhiti kōrero. Me te tūmanako o ia ke tai tonu ki tōna whakamutunga ka tonu ai ngā kaupapa. E pērana te ahua o ngā mahi o roto tēnei kāinga. Engari, me mihi atu ki a koutou ngā mana whenua ko taimai. Tēnei whenua hoki o te whānau aiwi, tai atu ko te aita ngā mahaki. Te rātaha ngai tāwhiri, rongo whakāta, tēnei taha noa hoki. Ngati Oneone, hara mai rā. Hara mai rā, whakatau mai rā I roto tō tātou nei whare. Tō tātou nei whare, hei whakawhiti ngā āhuatanga wainga nui a tātou. Engari hara mai rā, I ngā maharatanga rokohanga tēnei tara wāhi, ko te kaunihera tunu kei konei e whakawhaiti mai, e whakarite mai ngā kaupapa wainga nui. Aha ko rātou me ki tātou. Aha ko ngā whakaritenga ka tau I roto I tēnei o ngā kāinga. Ko te hua, me te tūmanako hoki, ka tai atu ki te tai rāwhiti whānui tonu. Tērā taho hoki, mai pōtiki rua, tai no mai ki te toka tai au, whakawhiti atu ki te pari tū, hoki atu ki ngā pai maunga, o te aoparauri, hoki atu ki ngā huka o te tai, mai tērā moka ki tēnei moka, ko tātou tonu e nei. Ko tātou hoki, ngā iwi katoa, ngā tangata katoa o te tai rāwhiti, rokohanga te kaunihera e mihi atu nei ki a koutou, nau mai, hara mai, whakatau mai, tēnei tō tātou hui. Kātū.
Tō aroa e kaere I te rā, uritia o ngā kaupapa ki a mau. Ngā tamari ki toa kei te rangi e haere ana e tau kurire. O rahia e makariki ki te whenua. E hara e motu e. I atiru e kuawai onore. Mo te pani mo te rawa kore. Whakawau ko taku titiko, te renga o te rā. Tauana te haune, ki te manawa.
matariki ki te whenua. Te maramatamo, te rotu e. Kia tipu he Uawa, Onore. Mo te parani, mo te ra, Walkway. Mo te rea,
Whanga ngā kaupapa mua tonu i a tātou i tēnei ata tonu me mihi atu ki te whānau o Pere. Ki a koutou hoki o Uawa mai tawhiti. Ki a koutou hoki o Ngati Oneone, ka koutou hoki me ki ngā tīmatatanga o ngā hui o tēnei rā. Engari nau mai, hara mai. Engari, whaia titi kahurangi ki eke tonu ai tātou ki ngā taumata tiki o te mātauranga o te māramatanga. Engari, kaua tonu tātou e tuohu, e whati. Whaia ke whiwhi, mahia ke haumi e, hui e.
tariki e.
We might do today is to do our public deputations first, and then we will move on to what we usually do first. So without further ado, I am going to welcome Alan and the Pere Trust to do a public deputation to us here today. You are more than welcome to come and sit next to me here. This is a relaxed environment. We are here to listen to you, so please feel free to come and join us. And just for members of the public deputations are really relaxed. We are here to listen. We won't debate issues at public deputations because people are bringing issues to us which we won't discuss or debate, but councillors have the opportunity to ask questions of clarification. So without further ado, good morning and welcome. The floor is yours, councillors, for about 8 to 10 minutes, leave a couple of minutes for questions, and then we take it from there. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for welcoming us to today's week. My name is Alan Haronga. I'm chairman of the Pere Trust Board. I'm accompanied by Tim Rhodes. Tim is Pere's agribusiness general manager. We would like to advocate for a reallocation today of a $64 million flood mitigation package for Gibson district that I understand we will be discussing soon. For context, our lands affected by the flood mitigation package are located at Tangihanga, and Tangihanga is just across the river from the Ormond Township, and at Karakia, by the Kanakanaya Bridge. We have more than one flood protection issue with Gibson District Council that we would like to share with you and seek your assistance with. In terms of Tangihanga, post-Gabrielle, Council agreed to necessary flood protection works on Tangihanga, which include substantial earthworks and stop bank upgrades. The affected land is some 145 hectares of corpus land, and when the flood banks are realigned, a further 15 hectares of corpus land will lose current flood protection, making the land high flood risk. Council have since reneged due to cost. This will leave the Pere whānau disadvantaged while providing a level of protection for Ormond and ultimately Brisbane City. By the way, I'll make this presentation available to the trustees. We'll leave copies behind. The cost to widen the river at Tangihanga and remove the soil is estimated at $4 million. Another issue at Tangihanga is we have been left with an unsafe, not fit for purpose, half-finished drain out of the basin, which needs to be repaired by the council. The remedial cost for this is estimated at 1.5 million. So that's Tangihanga. Moving to Te Karaka. The preferred protection option at Te Karaka, which is still yet to be resolved, will probably involve council taking more Pere land again, leaving Pere whānau disadvantaged again. The preferred option seems likely to affect another 10 hectares of our corpus land. Bringing that all together, our corpus land is important to us, but we're happy to support the preferred option if council do the necessary flood protection work at Tangihanga. Completing flood protection work below Te Karaka, including Tangihanga, will benefit Te Karaka. Completing flood protection work at Te Karaka will benefit Te Karaka and those below, including Ormond and Gisborne City. To give you some idea of the effect of floods on Tangihanga since Cyclone Bylaw in 1988, it's cost us several $1 million to remedy as well as lost revenue. We think it's unfair, inequitable and unjust treatment that we're receiving while the Gisborne and Ormond communities have been protected at our expense. To give you some idea today of the economic impact, we are achieving 6 million revenue from the Tangihanga Basin area at the moment, and we could move that towards 10 million if the flood protection work is completed as advocated. Also, the loss in revenue and remedial costs would be expected to be less in the event of a major flood. So, in summary, we're seeking your support to relocate 5.5 million of a 64 million flood mitigation package for Gisborne to complete the Tangihanga works, because it benefits all communities from Te Karaka to the Waipara River outfall at called Pututea. And as I said, we will leave a copy of our presentation with you to consider. Also, to give context, we're happy to host a visit to the two sites, Tangihanga and Te Karaka, to outline the effects and the benefits that the current discussion will provide.
Tim, is there something you would like to add?
No, Alan's covered that well.
So, councillors, any questions of clarification? And then obviously as a council we can discuss this at another time because we will need information from officers. Any questions of clarification? If not, you will send a copy through to...
We'll leave a copy.
You'll leave a copy for us and we'll make sure every councillor gets one.
Appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Yes, we will make sure every councillor gets a copy. Awesome. Next, I would like to invite our Uawa whānau to come. Bessie, who is going to support you? Bessie, is it Greg? Lovely. Greg and Bessie, you are no strangers to this table, so I do not have to tell you how it goes. Please take a seat, my friend. You know the process. I'll call yours and leave a few minutes at the end, so if there are any questions of clarification, please councillor can move in. Thank you, Bessie.
Nā koe e te kaiarangi, nā koe. Me koutou ngā kai kaunihere o te tairawhiti. E ho mā, e te whānau, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you all today. My name is Bessie Macy. I serve as the Uawa Cycle and Walkway Community Lead. First, I'd like to thank Pere here and the councillors for your ongoing support to the Uawa Cycle and Walkway and for the funding that has been provided by the council and Whakaputahi for stage 2 of the trail around Tolaga Bay Township, Tatarahake Beach and Uawa Parade. I would also like to acknowledge your previous commitment through the Regional Land Transport Plan 2024 to 2027 to stage 1 of the cycleway from the township to the Tolaga Bay Wharf. I'd also like to acknowledge, I beg your pardon, we understand that the recent rewrite of the government policy statement on land transport and the government's near blanket withdrawal of funding for walking and cycling projects has significantly impacted what you are now able to support. We have recently established the Uawa Cycle and Walkway Charitable Trust, which is registered with Charities Services. The kaupapa of the trust is the ongoing maintenance and development of the cycle and walkway and the enhancement of its immediate environs. Our trust members are Padre Bill Gray, Cultural Advisor, Adrienne Baird, Trust Secretary, Andrew Shelton, Trust Chair and Compliance Advisor, Pat Seymour, Governance Advisor, Roger van der Zenden, Legal Advisor, and Greg Shelton, Health and Safety Advisor. All are active members in the Uawa Tolaga Bay community. The Trust is currently negotiating with the Hautian Corporation Management Committee for permission to build a section of the cycle and walkway across their farmland adjacent to the Kaitaua estuary. Hautian Corporation have expressed their support in principle for the proposed trail. You may be aware that Gibson Holdings Limited recently secured a 21-year lease of the Tolaga Bay motor camp with plans to upgrade the motor camp and apply for top 10 holiday park status. Members of our trust recently met with Jeremy Raymond and Hazel Richardson from GHL, and they have strong support for the cycle and walkway and expressed their desire to benefit the economy of Tolaga Bay. Today we set 2 recommendations. Number 1, that the Uawa Cycle and Walkway Charitable Trust be invited to work alongside the Council's Tairawhiti Community Facilities Strategy Team, including Anita Reedy-Holthausen, Jocelyn Allen, Tim Barry, Michelle Frey, James Beatty, and their teams. The goal is to develop a long-term, cost-effective maintenance plan for the Uawa Cycle and Walkway that is sustainable and fit for purpose. This plan will involve the Trust, Uawa Tolaga Bay community, and the Gisborne District Council. Number 2, that the section of the cycle and walkway trail located on GDP property at the corner of Solander and Furno Streets, which was temporarily closed, be reopened immediately for community use, now that the forestry / removal and the regrassing has been completed. I'd now like to ask Greg to speak further on this matter.
Thank you, Bessie. Greg.
Thank you, Bessie. Good morning, everyone. Your Worship.
Morning, Greg.
Councillors, which I think I've met quite a few of you. Whenua, sort of wear different hats today, don't we? Bessie, thank you for that. Yeah, my name is Greg Sheldon, and I'm a trustee of the Uawa Cycle and Walkway Charitable Trust. I think, like in most cities and smaller towns, walkways and cycleways have been constructed for two reasons, and that's mainly for the, we've created a safe and all-weather environment for families and individuals to walk at any time of the year. We've done this to encourage people to get out of their cars and ride bikes and buy suitable footwear. You know, it's more of a health and well-being thing. The second reason why we do it is to really showcase what we've got, and I think you've done it here in Tarawhiti as well. We're doing it up where we live. We've got two beautiful beaches. We've got elevated sites, but we're a community that's been divided by the Uawa River, and that's why stage 2, and I think I've got to clarify the stage 2, we've completed that first because it was relatively easy because we're only dealing with two stakeholders, and that was Waka Kotahi and the Gibson District Council. Stage 1 is a very, very exciting stage where we are, the plans are to have a clip-on onto the existing Uawa Bridge, and then the pathway then extends south and follows the estuary around. It will encompass two 20-metre bridges that will take us over waterways to the beginning of the Cooks Cove Walkway, the bridge, the wharf, and the holiday park. What we're doing is we're encouraging people to join both sides of the river, and at the moment to do that you've got to either walk on State Highway 35, which is dangerous, and it's really going to combine, in the long term, combine the whole thing. And this is not only for local people, this is for visitors as well. Now, the stage 2, which was completed in 2022, down the bottom of the corner of Furno and Bank Street, there is a public domain there that when I was a youngster, not long ago, that was the rubbish tip, and it was used to reclaim the land and then backfilled with topsoil and ring fenced and what we call a deer fence, and it was known as a rugby league field because the rugby league played there for some time. I think the Pony Club used it for some time, and it was open to the Motorhome Association, which really didn't come to anything at all. Unfortunately, after a few weather events, the council renamed it the Slash Paddock. Now, we want to really move on from this. You know, we've moved on from weather events, whether you talk to reporters from Radio New Zealand or what, and we still call it the rugby league field. Unfortunately, without any consultation or conversation, the Gibson District Council took over what they now call the Slash Paddock, and they used it to marshal all the logs and slash, which is fine. And I've got to say now that the walkway wasn't damaged apart from the entranceway, but unfortunately, after the event now and that area is clear, the council have refused to engage with us, and that portion of the walkway has remained closed. And so now those who use the walkway have to deviate onto the council road on a part of the road. It's only 80 metres length, but it's put everybody into a pretty dangerous position, and to the point really that we're forced or looking at closing the walkway or making a decision because we don't want people to use the walkway and put in that type of situation. That's basically what we need. We want to retain a working relationship with the District Council. We want them to meet with us on site and talk about things. We need that that slash paddock, and I think that might be on the photo up there now. We want it reinstated. It's very, very simple to reinstate, and we need to get on with life. So that's pretty well me. Look, at the end of any presentation I do, I normally throw in something like Go the Crusaders or whatever, but we know the result of that. Whenua, I listened to your talk back on Ngati Pro this week. Enjoyed it, thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, there was a phrase you used, and I love it. We are here temporarily, but our decisions are permanent. I love that, so thank you for that. I thought I'd bring that up with you today. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Greg. Are you open to questions? If there are questions, you, Rowena and then Josh.
Thank you so much for your presentation, and I just wanted to know what needs to happen to open the 80-metre stretch that's closed.
All that needs to be done is the northern and southern end. They've covered that up with like a netting. All that has to be done is to pull that down and reinstate that bit of probably a 2-metre pathway where the trucks went across, and that's all that needs to be done. I was going to do it, but that was a little bit radical, a little bit feral, so I thought, no, that's all that needs to be done.
Thank you for not being radical and feral. Josh.
Yeah, Tere, are you able to just bring that picture back up again, please? Are you able to, we have the same question. I did want to know, like, on that picture, you were saying that was the part that needed to be open? Was that the part there that needed to be cleared away or something like that? Just to try to get an understanding as to what needs to be done specifically.
That was, no, that's not that at all.
Okay.
And neither is that.
Okay.
And neither is that. None of that.
I
thought we had photos, but you.
Onto this?
Oh, now we're onto it now. Sweet. Okay, the gateway that we're looking at now, that's the pathway that the trucks and loaders entered and exited to remove slash from the beach, and that platform ahead of us, that was where it was all marshalled. So you can see there's not really a great deal of damage done to the walkway. Really a light rake or a grader blade would do it. And I'm kind of and you can see that pathway going from south to north. I was kind of hoping that we would have the corner of the road, but it's not coming up for some reason, and that would show you. Yes, yeah. Okay, now the road is on my right, and that's really not quite clear, but you see the pathway, and if another photo came back this way, it would show the deer fencing that with the netting over it that quite simply just has to be removed.
Bye.
Now that's the road, that's the dangerous part. Now on a beautiful day like we normally get, there's nothing wrong with that, but that is a fast sweeping corner. Normally there's water on the inside and a bit of debris on the outside. It's completely blind with the trees that have been planted, and you can imagine kiddies on bikes, mums and dads, leaving the pathway proper and sweeping around that bend and really not being in a good position. That's the cycleway itself. But yeah, in question, sorry, it would take 10 minutes to reinstate it.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you for that, Greg. Thank you, BC. Yes, thank you for taking the time. Thank you, Padre, for bringing the crew. Now I would welcome our Ngati Oneone whānau, Charlotte. I can't see you. There you are. Warm welcome to the Gibson District Council, and we can move more chairs, Shah, if you need more chairs. Come on, June. Here we go. We've got heaps of chairs here. Make yourselves at home. Good morning. Is that what you're saying? And the floor is yours.
Morena tātou. Firstly, tēnā koe mo te tonoa kia haramai konei tēnei ata. Thank you for the invitation to taku iwi me ngā peti peti, wherever they are. I'm not sure where the kids have gone to now. They're probably owning your office. I'd also like to take this moment to acknowledge tā mate te rohe, because a lot of those mate have impacted on us. So, kia rātou, haere, ki te whānau pani nei, aroha asu kia rātou. I really wanted to thank those councillors who have taken time to come and have a chat up at Paeketu or down at Tātāne. So thank you. When Teddy came, he came and brought us a swordfish as a koha. We weren't quite sure what to do with a swordfish. Yes. It has been appreciated to have you come onto our lands and have a talk about what it is that we're there. We're not there to anything but to make a statement that says Rawiri was there once. It was taken under an act. It's not being used. And really, we just want it back. And it's as simple as that. It's not quoting anyone's whakapapa or anything like that. It's not having battles with our people, with our relations. Hey, it's just to say, it's time now to give it back. 100 years is enough time, we think. And so, yeah, I just wanted to thank you all for those who took time to hear our story, and to those who haven't been, nau mai hara mai, peka mai. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Trust Hei Rāwhiti. We have met with all the Trust Hei Rāwhiti directors thus far. We've met with Eastland Group and Port Eastland. I think those are the names. So we've met with all of them so far. This afternoon we'll be meeting with David Batten again to get some update on where they are. So really today it was about us to say, we're the only hapu in the whole of your rohe that's landless. We were the first hapu that experienced homelessness in our side of town. Homelessness is still happening on our side of town. We think we can do something about it, but we need ways to do that. We also just want to say to you all, encourage you to trust us. You know, in times of disaster, you trust us with your most prized possession, which is your people. Trust us. Please trust us. We know what we can do. We're great for it, and I don't want us to sound whakahihi, but we are. We're great for looking after people, especially in times of crisis. E te iwi, I just have to say, we're in a crisis now. You're in a crisis situation. It's day 53. My people are getting cold sitting out there. Yes, you could say, well, you did it. You decided to go and sit out there. The day we did the hiko and we came here first was 185 years to the day that our tipuna signed, Rawiri Teke, Poho Rawiri, signed the Treaty of Waitangi. He signed that treaty saying, Aira. In this day and age, it is Aira. So I say to you all, Aira, get it, do it. Support Ngati Oneone to help themselves. Because at the end of the day, whatever we do to help ourselves actually helps the people that live in our community. We're not a hapu that is just about us. We're a hapu about the we. And I invite you all to invest in us. We're worth the investment, believe me. As I said, we've had your most vulnerable in your community helped by us. We've had those who suffered in COVID times fed by us, food delivered, hand-cooked by us and delivered to you. and again also in the flood time. So really just one more thing, when I say this is day 54 for us, this is day 54 where my older cousins and older sisters sit out in the cold. They'll sit there and they'll keep sitting there until there's a resolve for their uri. And they're not the only ones. We have young mums there who come with their babies, they're trying to toss up work, baby, holding the mauri at our ahi. But that's how much it means to us. I got shown the statistics on our Facebook pages and that we've got, I invite you all to join it actually, Oneone ki te whenua. Please have a join, then you can see how we're tracking, you can see how the people of Penalties and around the globe are supporting us. With 613 odd people coming in on the daily to check us out, that's quite a big thing. Just lastly, on day 2, well, day 1, Ellen came to see us, and then day 2, these two beautiful ladies came to see us, and we're still at day 53, and as I said, I invite those who haven't been. I appreciated your apology, Larry. Thank you very much for coming to me up at our site. I appreciated that very much. But lastly, all I want to say before I go sit down is that I normally do a spiel in an hour, and I really am getting warmed up. I know I've only got 10 minutes. So just lastly, I encourage the councillors to support the statement of intent that your staff will be tabling today. And I ask you all to support that 100%. Kia ora. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Willie.
Mōrena kia koutou, tēnā koutou, tautoko i ngā mihi o taku tuahine a harata o Ngati Oneone kia koutou. Thank you, Your Worship, for the opportunity to speak. On top of the points that have been made by harata, I just want to acknowledge the GDC staff that have worked with us to shape the paper that is being considered by you today. And so that statement of intent, firstly, I acknowledge the changes that have been proposed as well that we worked through with the team and that has been sent to you separately. And then in relation to the 3 recommendations that are put before you for consideration, really the last point is saying or seeking your support. If there is support for what that paper is outlining in terms of the statement of intent, ours is to actually move on that and actually say, let's get that completed consistent with the paper that you have before you, and then put it into a position where we can get that signed off by yourself, Your Worship, together with Nadine and our representatives for Ngati Oneone. So rather than going through the process of taking time and coming back, actually we're ready now to proceed. I'll let GDC management speak on their own behalf, but those are the only points that I wanted to say in relation to the documentation that you have in front of you. I think it's a positive way forward. I think it shows leadership from the GDC that will rub off on Trust Tairāwhiti and also the Eastland group. Like Harata has said, we've had positive meetings with them at Te Pā Eke Tū. And I think that GDC has the opportunity to show leadership in this space. So those are the only points that I wanted to make, Your Worship, and kia kaha, kia koutou, kia tātou.
Kia ora, Willie. Good. Okay. I thank everyone for your presence here today as well. It's appreciated. We are now going to move into our agenda proper. I just wanted to let you know we are going to do a little bit of housekeeping, but within the next 5 to 10 minutes, we should be getting to the Ngati Oneone paper. You just bear with us for a few minutes. we will be meeting there. We'll move it to be our first paper of the day. Okay, any apologies? No apologies, full house today. Any declarations of interest? Okay, so we've got 5 sets of minutes in front of us, councillors. So it is page 5 to 28. Ideally, I would like one councillor to move all 5 sets. And the reason I say this, because these minutes were emailed to you quite some time ago, so you've had the opportunity to read them. So what I'm after is, if there are anything factually incorrect in these minutes, to highlight it. Otherwise, I'm looking for a mover and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Parata, seconded by Councillor Gregory. It's all 5 sets of minutes. All in favour? Contrary? Carried. Do you have a correction to make?
Just a query. When we're passing these minutes, we're passing, the first one is the bylaw submissions panel.
Yep.
And having not been present at those meetings, how can we all pass that? That's the only
People
query.
that were present just voted, I assume. So the others were just yaying in the background.
Okay.
Understood? Do you want me to go through each set of minutes and get the committee to pass them?
No, your wish.
I can do that.
Actually, that is correct because
He's right.
I wasn't on that. I can't second it.
Yeah, and I wasn't.
Okay, I take you to page 5. We're
Like,
going to do the hard journey today. Who were on the panel? Josh, Teddy, Ani. Can I please have one of them move it? Moved by Ani, seconded by Teddy. All in favour? Next one. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Tibble. All in favour? Contrary? Carried. Next one. Bylaws. Josh, Larry, Daniel. Daniel moved, seconded. Josh. All in favour? Contrary? Carried. Next one. Moved by myself, seconded by Whenua or Debbie. Seconded by Whenua, all in favour. Contrary, carried. Last set is all of us. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Ria, all in favour. Contrary, carried. Okay, so now I take you, thank you for pointing that out, because in the end of the day, we do want to do stuff right. Actions register and our governance plan as always. Do I have a leave of absence? No. Acknowledgements and tributes. Josh, you go first. If I can just everyone to listen. Thank you.
Ki ngā tini mate wainganui a tātou I tēnei rā, oki atu rā. We've had Uncle Paku pass away, Auntie Waka, Auntie Wai, but recently, just overnight, we've had Maria Meno, MP for the Māori Party. She just passed away at 2 a.m. this morning. So, you know, huge mihi from us here as a local government entity to that MP from the Māori Party who is being duly elected by her constituents to be a member to represent people in central government. So just a mihi and an acknowledgement to them just recently.
Ashkim. Thank you, Willie.
I just want to acknowledge the 3 fishermen and condolences to the family who are moving today. So it's a year ago today.
Oh, thank you for that, Teddy. Lots of aroha to Tashkem's whānau, but also to our 3 fishermen whānau who would today be thinking back 1 year ago. Thank you for that. Any other acknowledgements or tributes? Not that I'm aware of. Okay, no extraordinary business, no notices of motion, no adjourned business. I take you to page 38, which is our council committee recommendations to council. So at this stage, we have 1A, adopt the recommendations from the TRMP Plan Committee, confirm the content of the draft plan change, including any amendments, and send the draft plan change to iwi authorities as required by clause 4A, first schedule Resource Management Act 1991. Moved by Councillor Foster.
Can I ask a question? So, because I'm getting a little bit confused with what is being sent, in section 32, which is like an impact statement of how this thing works, is that being sent as well, or not?
Jocelyn.
No, sorry, you were.
Charlotte. So what is being seen, this was not at last week's, not at yesterday's TRMP, it was the previous TRMP.
So the draft plan change being sent, and we've also sent draft background information as well, which is what informs
Including
the
section 32.
Thank
you.
Thank you, Councillor Alder. All in favour? Aye. Carried. Okay, we are now moving to our first paper of the day, page 39, petition for Ngati Oneone ki te whare.
Thank you. Through your worship, so this report responds to the petition from Ngati Oneone seeking the return of any of council-owned land within the rohe, including Titirangi. So what we've recommended in here is the approval of a statement of intent to explore the future of the land in partnership with Ngati Oneone. The paper acknowledges the significance of the issue at hand, the long-term alienation of Ngati Oneone from their lands, and so we are recommending that we move forward in a structured and tiriti responsive pathway to look at the land parcels, to prioritise them, to work out the different arrangements, the underlying ownership structures, with future decisions on the on what we would go to following all of that over the course of time. So it's a project that we would work in partnership for. Picking up on what Mr. Te Aho had said, we have recommended that in here there's an option to come back to council to approve the statement of intent, but equally you could delegate to myself and the Mayor to sign off the statement of intent, depending on who your appetite sits. Leave it there and answer any questions.
So I just want to make sure everyone had the supplementary paperwork
and the maps.
With the maps, and then also page 40, recommendation 2, have had some updates to it. So without further ado, I open the floor for discussion. Thank you. Councillor Wharehinga.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Just wanted to double check, these ones have been the ones that have been co-collaborated with Ngati Oneone. Ngati Oneone are comfortable with recommendation 2, they adjusted around in a manner that upholds their tiriti or waitangi, in a way that achieves the aspirations of Ngati Oneone, while aligning with council's responsibility. So these are the ones. I mean, this decision is consistent with decisions that we've made in the past. We've already made a decision around the returning of Whenua up at Tokomaru. It's consistent with the conversations that we've had with my own iwi and my own hapu of Ngati Wahia, Ngati Kohuru about the Whenua down there. It's completely consistent with past discussions that we've had. I think that this is the right way for us and the consistent way for us to be done. So I'm happy to move this in its fullness with these additions, Your Worship, and this doesn't need to be a long kōrero. It's a consistent kōrero with what we've already done before. So, kia ora tātou.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Gregory. Councillor Parata.
When I came to council in our inductions, we were asked what is it that we hope to achieve. And that was behind closed doors, so it wasn't public. But we also, at the time, I think, got a basic list of lands that wasn't being used for public works. Right in the beginning, it was our first couple of days. And I remember saying to myself, I hope that we can find a way to be brave, and for all the lands that isn't being used for any purpose at all, that we find a way to return it to its original owners. I'm really encouraged to see Tokomaru do it, and I'm very encouraged to see Ngati Oneone step up and ask for what is rightly yours to be returned. That if it's not being used for the purpose in which it was taken, it's not being used for really anything, te me hoki whenua mai. I'm really proud to be part of a council that is brave enough to have these discussions when it feels like the rest of the country is stepping away from Māori kaupapa and rejecting Māori requests for their whenua and for their mana of their whenua to be returned to them. I'm proud to be part of a council that not only receives this kind of kōrero and this kind of petition, but acknowledges it and takes steps operationally and in governance to make brave decisions. I'm not afraid that this paper won't pass. I know it will. I know it will pass. I have faith in this council that it will pass. But I just wanted to stand up and acknowledge how far we've come as a council and how far we still have yet to go. This will be the first of many. It will be the first of many, and this is the steps in true partnership. What Auntie Shah said about, trust us that we can do this. But you trust us with your vulnerable and you trust us with your people. But that's what partnership is, right? We cannot continue to ask of Māori, we cannot continue to ask of iwi and give nothing back. That's not what partnership is. It's walking hand in hand. So I like the recommendations as they are. I would like us to be very committed to ensuring that beyond this council, that we do everything within our power to ensure that nothing can change after election. Many of us will not be sitting in these seats, so these decisions need to be enduring. The commitment must be enduring beyond our, the personalities sitting at this table. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parata. Councillor Paparu,
Tēnā tātou, tēnā koutou, ngā tini whanaunga ko tai mai, Ngati Oneone ki ngā koutou. You're right, Shah, 100 years is way long enough. Kōrero whenua atu me hoki whenua mai. I absolutely support the motion that's been put by Councillor Wharehinga and seconded by Councillor Gregory. My only question is, of Nadine, I guess, how long? I'd like to see a time frame put on this so that it doesn't drag on. They've already been out in the cold for 50-something days, 54 days, it's long enough. We've got a bitter winter, that's quite nice today, but it has been some cold nights. My son has been one of them in there helping the fort by the fort, and I absolutely tautoko the need to get this done as soon as possible. I support everything that Whenua has said, and also thank Ngati Oneone for their graciousness in opening their doors to us as councillors, but also to meet with Trust Tairāwhiti, Eastland Group, Port Eastland, Tatapauri Fishing Club, and everybody else who has come past the fire and taken the time to sit with them. Lots can be solved by having a cup of tea and a kōrero around the fire. We should have done this a long time ago. So I hope that today, and I have absolute confidence that we will pass this paper today. And yes, I also acknowledge the fact that this has been done before. Thank you to the staff for putting together the paper, because I enjoyed reading the other examples that have happened not just in Te Tairāwhiti but around the country. This is not new, but it is a step in the right direction in terms of what treaty partnership truly looks like, and that we're not afraid to go there. I do trust Ngati Oneone wholly in terms of the way that they manaki people, Wairano, from the time Cook arrived to now. They've opened their doors, and almost always to their detriment. Reciprocity is a two-way street, but often, more often than not, Ngati Oneone have constantly given, and there's been nothing given in return. This is our opportunity, after 100-something years, to put that right, in the smallest possible way. And it should be, and so the statement of intent, we need to move on that. I just request that we move on that quickly. It would be great to have that done before election.
It's the 13th of August.
Oh, fantastic. 13th of August, there's the date, whānau. And as I won't be sitting around this table at the next election, it would be just wonderful to get this across the line today. So, ka nui te mihi kia koutou, I tautoko, absolutely.
Kia ora.
I'm wondering if I should run standing orders, because we do have a 700-page agenda. I know everyone is keen to say something, and I don't want people to not say what they wanted to say, because I'm going to say something. When I read the papers the first time when Nadine and them sent that, what crossed my mind was Ngati Oneone is asking for little bits of land back. The real question we should be asking is, how much have they given to our community? And that is what crossed my mind when I read this, is you're asking back for little bits which are not used, but the real question and the real thank you we should be saying is how much we're given and is now, the area by the port. So I also want to thank you, and I'd also support what is in this paper. We have done it before as a council. It is a clunky journey. It's not an easy journey when legislation are weaved into different spaces and places. So there might be times when we will have to meet again and talk about stuff more, but I think I speak on behalf of this council when I said there's good intent from us to want to work with you in a way that is respectful and acknowledge what you have done and what you have gone through. So now that I have had the opportunity to say something, if there is anyone that still do want to say something, now is your time. Otherwise, I'm going to pass this paper. But I do feel wrong. Thank you.
Once the statement is formed, that will come back to the whole council.
So at this stage, this statement of intent will be prepared in time for our council meeting on the 13th of August, and will then come back to council. Is that right? Councillor Cranston.
Yeah. Tuatahi mi atu ki koutou nā whanau o Ngati Oneone. Hei tino pauri, tēnei kaupapa, tino pauri. Hei maha nā rau, hei rarararu. Kei te whakarongo ki a koutou. Just a few questions. What can we cover off on the statement of intent? Because as I read it, there's a few things that are kind of out of our control. One of them is respecting the interests of other iwi and hapu, whakapapa relationships to the land. So is that something that we can look at through the statement of intent? I think it might be something that's out of our hands, I'm not sure. And the other thing is the definition of core business, which might be something that comes up too. So just wonder whether we can cover that off.
Thank you, Councillor Cranston.
Yes, so through your worship, what we intend to do through that process will be try and fork out some of the parameters within which we can reasonably manage and control and influence. And that'll be a negotiation with Ngati Oneone around, well, what does this look like? What are your priority areas? And then what are some, because we might just go through and find some easy wins in this, but because I think whether we have 265 parcels, some of which would be maybe a couple might be freehold, simple title, some will be reserved, some will be public works, and so we just need to move through in that statement of intent what the priorities will be and how we're going to collaborate around it. So it's really going to just set out the framework for how we're going to work in this space. That's going to be that's going to be difficult to navigate, but I'm sure we will work in a partnership way to try and find the way forward.
Sure.
Okay, I have a mover in Councillor Wharehinga. I have a seconder in Councillor Gregory. All in favour? Aye. Contrary? Carried. People are very welcome to stay. I know everyone's going to run like the wind.
600 feet.
It's a bit quick, cuppa. 10-minute break. So we do have a big, massive chunk of work ahead of us. Big chunk of work. So I am going to ask everyone to please help me and work with me. I am not going to run strict standing orders, because I also believe if someone feels on their heart they want to say something, they should. But I also don't want you to feel you should say something just because you have a mouth. So I do want people to be with me. Please, this is a forum to ask your questions, get clarification, but be mindful that we have a 700-page agenda to work through. So I'm going to take you to our lovely annual plan on page 52. Nadine, are you going to give us an overview of our annual plan? And Pauline will take us through the rest. Pauline, thank you.
So this is basically a little bit of a revision of where we have consulted with the community with a 3-year plan. And in this 3-year process, we have the ability to reset, look at what we said we'd do in year 2, which is in next year, 25, 26. What's changed? What are the main impacts? And to actually set that final plan with those changes. So in order to be able to do the next part of it, which is to set our rates for the following year. In terms of the changes, they've been provided to you in probably 2 stages. The first being in February, which said this is a draft plan, and you saw it in full. Since that time, we just 2-3 weeks ago, we said, okay, what also happened as part of the annual process, what are the capital projects that perhaps weren't going to be completed by the 30th of June, but it's going to transfer into the next year. So those changes, or anything of the main changes up to the 1st of May, have been incorporated. Those are those decisions that you have made, incorporated into this annual plan. But basically, the financial strategy is set within the 3-year plan. Those limits in terms of overall debt and rates increases are aligned to, and there are minimal changes to what we actually said in the year 2 of plan. It aligns basically to what we actually consulted. But happy to take any questions or anything else with regards to the details.
Thank you, Pauline. Okay, the floor is yours, Councillor Cranston and then Councillor Green.
Yeah, thanks for that. A couple of things. Page 5512, contracted service hire, costs for tourism and economic development function. I'm aware that a lot of that is on the shoulders of TT. I know that we've still got some responsibilities there, but just wondering what those are and whether they rightly fall with us or TT's from the board a little bit.
This is actually our responsibilities and our contribution to those contracts, and basically it's only by the rate of inflation to put it into the this second year, and so there's a little bit of a difference from what we actually said from the first year. Revise one of those inflationary rates where we did an increase on the first year, and that's the alignment in here, and so it's our obligations just on those.
Okay. And 120 there, which has got quite significant budget decreases, and the level of service is staying the same. How do you actually do that? The table's page 120, there's a few things that are 25% budget decreases, but maintaining the level of service.
So yes, through Chair, on 120 is the capital expenditure, and so those capital expenditure is just mostly around the timing and the phasing of it over that 3-year program. And some of the things which we said, we put a provision in, so for the first one, is the land remediation. We had so I'm doing it the other way around. The annual plan, they're going up. They're all going up.
Hang on, I'll get to it.
Apart from the flood protection, flood resilience, it's going down. So probably...
The one I've noted, Parks and Reserve, 24% budget decrease, but maintaining levels of service. And likewise, land stability, big decrease there, but maintaining levels of service.
So, sorry, no, we'll clarify that doesn't make it easier for us to read, but year 2 was what was in the 3-year plan. The annual plan 26 is the second column. So you would see, if you're at the bottom of that first page, 120, it says the total is 10.6 million, which is more than what we had provided within the year 2 of the plan, so it's going up. But it's recorded in brackets the other way around. So it's actually, yeah, accountants, yes, I'm sorry. And most of that is we put it out in the other ones, the carryover of, we're going to quite complete it, but we're going to need it completed in the next year.
Thank you.
Councillor Gregory.
Thank you. I've just got a few things. Firstly, on page 68, we're talking about our major projects. And then again on 83, it's the same, page 83 also. So it talks about the Kiwa Pool Stage 2, planning, expansion of outdoor facilities, water play areas, risky play spaces, and an improved hydro slide. I just find it difficult to understand where this improved hydro slide has come into play when I've been here for 6 years, and when I stood for council the second time, we did a video and they asked what we would do if we had a limited amount of money, what would you do? And on this video I said, I would like to fix the hydro slide or organise for a hydro slide in the new Kiwa pools, because I know that we can't afford it and I know that we haven't got enough money. And I've never read anything about it since then until I read this annual plan. And I see that in our annual plan we've got an improved hydro slide coming along, and it bothers me because whilst I'd love a hydro slide and all that, and I've got grandchildren who would love a hydro slide, and I'm sure every kid in Gibson would love a hydro slide, but how come that comes about when we're supposed to be focusing on recovery? And it seems like a nice to have rather than a good to have. Can I go on to my next one, or should we just
wait for that one first?
Yeah. So that's not a new hydro slide, it's a maintenance of our existing hydro slide. And the outdoor, if I just, so the outdoor part that we had committed through the Crown Infrastructure Partner funding, that is through a contract that we had agreed that we would continue through, and that was thrashed out when we developed the recovery.
Yeah, I'm happy with that money that has been set aside for that, but just the fact that the hydro slide, we had previously been told, it's got big problems, it needs some big money, and it's...
Through your worship, so we are, with the outdoor precinct area, we're currently working through an analysis of the best features for the area, and we'll be commissioning a master plan piece which will then advise on exactly what is the best option in terms of some of these key features to be developed within that 6.5 million envelope. So it's early stages. I take your feedback on board. The hydro slide is a key feature. There may be some improvements that are undertaken as part of that master plan piece, but it is all considered as one holistic project.
Okay. And if I could also talk about page 69. Yeah, in this document, which is our annual plan, is this photo, which really struck me as it's really been tutued around. You know, like there's blue water. Look at all the street lights. I've never seen so many street lights in Gisborne. And also, street lights are made to shine down and not shine up. And I just find it a bit of incorrect to have a photo like that. In our plan, we were trying to be open, honest and transparent, and that photo for me looks more like Disneyland than Gisborne. And I just really think it should be put back to how it looks, or else it shouldn't be there. Another picture should be chosen. Has it been printed yet?
The adoption of this, allows it to be there. So therefore, if you say, can you edit, like we say minor formatting, if you say, I really don't like it, we can change it.
Councillor Thompson.
Thanks for the report. Page 57, it talks about activities at the airport. I think the airport is sort of run by, I'm just wondering what council involvement is at the airport.
Can you just ask your question again?
On page 57, it mentions council activities at the airport. My understanding was the port looked after the airport. So I'm just wondering what activities at the airport council's involved in.
Through the chair, but basically it's just the lease.
It's talking about
It's just talking about the lease. We separate each of those income and expenditure that may be outgoings of it for our portion under the airport. So that's what that's talking about there. Yeah.
And just on page 100, I'll probably sound like a broken record, but in 2022 our debt was 86 million. In 2024 our debt's 178 million. To me you can say, your rates are going up 10%, or you could put that debt on rates and say your rates are doubled in two years. It's just how you sort of play with the numbers. So yeah, I'm really concerned about the level that our loans and borrowings just keep going up, like it's just free money. In our 3-year plan, our forecasted debt was 220 million, and that's our 3-year. That's our plan for our 3 years. We're looking at this; it's going to be 227 million. So, struggle how we can borrow that much money, and I'd like to at least stick to our 3-year plan of 220 million. It says an extra. Says most of that money is for matching pothole budget. I realise we're sort of winning there because NZT we're only paying a share, and NZTA is paying the most of that. But yeah, I struggle how much we're borrowing, and I'd like to see at least that we stick to our 3-year plan and not borrow more than we've agreed for our 3-year plan.
Through the chair, you're quite right. Things with that, the main changes was we had increased from NZTA in terms of what we could spend on the roads, and the only way of doing that at that particular point in time was actually to increase that through debt. So that's the main part of it. The other part was a little bit of the change with the statement of intent when we did the 3-year plan. We expected to have perhaps a dividend coming back in this particular year. So acknowledge that it wasn't. So your options at that particular point to be able to absorb that amount, either to increase rates, or you notice that it is going to be over a period of time, so you're smoothing the impacts of rates. We believe that it is prudent and can be clawed back in terms of that, smoothing the rates over this period of time for those two particular items rather than increasing the rates. But that's your two options at this particular point in time. Most of it, just to be aware, that's what we're working on in terms of achieving that. That is the full amount of the capital program. Sometimes there is drop-offs, and so sometimes you work within it, but that's talking about, that's the level of debt that we're forecasting based on the level of capital expenditure at 100% delivery.
Yeah, just like, for example, next year, our 27 year, it's automatically 7 mil more than our forecast without whatever's going to happen in that year, and I guarantee more stuff's going to happen in that year. I just think we're sort of living beyond our means. We're sort of borrowing, and what worries me that my term in council, what did you do in council? Oh, we put our debt through the roof, and I don't know, just scares me. I sort of don't want to be known as that council myself.
I just think we need to put that in perspective, that we're not doing nothing with the money.
No, and so most of you will know that this council had significantly lower debt than any other council in New Zealand, and we had a massive disruption. And I acknowledge your concerns in terms of the debt, but it's for a lot of this is around that front-loading component of being able to co-fund our share of the investment that's required after Cyclone Gabrielle. So for this period of disruption, you would see that debt go up. And I think I've already raised before that with the new water regime, we are likely to need more debt headroom, hence why we have to go for credit rating to be able to maintain the assets at the standard that otherwise will set for us. So in your time and then the elected members next time, there's likely to be, the reality is either we raise the rate to get more income in, or we smooth it and spread that burden over time through.
And also the two components of paying for something, which you have the rates, is more operational stuff, where for the longer term stuff, you do want to use intergenerational equity, where you don't want us to pay for the pool in the next 3 years, you want the next 50 years of people to pay for it. So it is that, and I acknowledge, I share the same concern that we have huge costs, but we should not lose sight of the fact that we are and have been doing the work of 1.5 councils. If our benchmarking come out, which will in the middle of July, you will see, compared to other councils, how much capital works we have done. And there is a portion there that we have to debt fund because we weren't planning for it, it just happened. And in order to then capture the NZTA money and not let that go, we do need to in some way make sure we secure that for our community. But I absolutely agree, and I share your concerns.
Richie, can I just add to that? There are benchmarks. We're required by legislation to actually work with the financial benchmarks under the Local Government Act. And what is that? To say what is the main measure of what that is? It's refer to page 60. It says the benchmarks. And one of the central debt affordability is the percentage of what is the debt servicing compared to under that threshold of 10%, and we're just over 5.3%. So we monitor that, we actually have that. That is the ability to repay the debt, and that's fundamentally a prudent measure that we actually assign, because we have had, since that time, as you quite rightly point out, has increased, but we've also done a significant capital investment in the wastewater treatment plant and over and above, so which had been for a very on the cards for a very long time. So there's been significant works that we've also increased in capital investments in our area.
Councillor Parata is next.
I thought I have a few things, is that okay? But you might just have to be a little bit patient. Right. I'm mostly happy with the document. I just had a couple of questions. Page 70, which is personally, I love the inclusion of infographics, and so big ups to the content developing that. This population by age is real weird. Why is it 15 to 65? That's a huge group. Of course it's 61%. That's like everyone. The reason it's so important to me, or the reason I picked it up, is I wanted to understand the youth population. And I mean youth like, 15 to 22. I want to understand what is that population in Te Tairawhiti, so that, going forward we can make decisions that affect that youth population specifically. And then I'd like to know what's the working age group. So, 22, 23, to 50.
65?
No, to 50. I want to know, if we could have a more specific breakdown, that will really help us to further understand the demographics and of our region. I think that's important. I just had an amendment to page 73, review relationship agreements with iwi and hapu. I sort of thought it might make more sense if it says review and give effect to relationship agreements, just because that gives the language is a bit stronger, that we're actually trying hard to participate and grow this relationship. And I would love to see us do that. I'll send the next council. Big relief around the Waipawa Flood Resilience Project. Originally it was due to be completed by 2031. Hopefully all going well, no dramas, no weather events. It'll be finished by June 2027. That's awesome. The partai, one of the partais I had around the roading is, did we get anywhere with Waipiro Bay? I know that it sits outside of kind of our budget at the moment, but is there any scope to have it included in terms of we're having a working relationship, or we're trying, or we're supporting, or whatever it is that we're doing, knowing just how big of an issue Waipiro Bay is, the road?
Yeah, so through worship we have, with partnering with Ngati Pere, prioritise the Waipiro Bay Road as part of the heavy projects funding out of recovery.
Could we have that included in a sentence? That we acknowledge that it is a big mahi. We have a way to support it. I know that it doesn't sit necessarily in terms of our financial commitments, but it is something that we care about. Why? Love all the things about the city centre revitalisation, particularly about, you know, activating vacant spaces, upgrading public spaces, and attracting businesses into our CBD. It's so important that our CBD is pumping. What else do I have? Sorry, it's such a big document.
That's all good. There's no rush.
I'm getting panicked. And then I had one other polite request, because if you're going to change the photo that Debbie doesn't like, can you also change my photo that I don't like?
Well, we're getting a bit loosey-goosey now, because we do need to trust. I was going to say that earlier. We do need to, and we'll talk about it right at the end, but there are lots of things I like or dislike, which I would not have put there, so we just need to make sure. We also allow our creative team to do their job, because they are actually the experts in it and paid for it. But I will listen, so lay it out.
That's all. I'm happy to move the paper.
Now you need to tell us the photo.
I don't like that one of all of us, firstly, but I'll put myself in it. But the headshot of me can come off, and I'll give you one. Wish you fellas.
Okay, thank you for moving the paper.
Second.
Colin, thank you.
Yes, I've got a few questions.
No rush.
So starting from the bottom on page 116, and one of the notes, employee benefit expenses. I've gone about it slightly differently. I've gone back to business as usual, which was our 23 annual plan, and I've looked at what our wages were there, and it was 28 million, and the 28 million is equivalent to the 48 salary and wages you see there under the AP 26. So that 28 million back in 23, 2.4 million of that was recharged. Now, recharged means, correct me if I'm wrong, Pauline, recharged means that was the amount of wages that was spent on capital items that were already put into the document somewhere else, so they are taken out. So between that period of time, and granted this is through the flood and through our recovery, our wages have gone from the 28 to 48. The recharge at this period is 10 million, which brings our non-capital wages to 38 million. Still a $10 million rise. And that through that period, our wages, annual wages bill has gone up $20 million. I'd like to go up now to page 115. And just a question around regional leadership and support services at 29 million. Or 31 actually, if you look at that other one.
Leadership.
The email sent.
Yeah, 2 million.
2,900.
Sorry?
It's supposed to be million.
We're on page note 2. The AP in 2023 had leadership at 16 million. So regional leadership and support services have gone from 16 million to a predicted 31.5 million. Can someone explain what sort of costs those are? Like, are they recovery, definite recovery, or are they internal costs? Because what does regional leadership and support services cover?
There was an email sent about it yesterday.
Breaking it down. Go all around. Okay.
So TD asked that question. I'll forward it to you. It breaks it down.
Because it includes you.
Includes everyone.
Includes everyone. It's got science and strategy and.
So
I'll forward it to you.
So buried in 1,000 pages.
No, you didn't.
Sorry, I didn't.
Sorry, it didn't.
I didn't receive it.
Support services, 40% finance, legal, IT, customer service, employee engagement, rates remission 5%, governance.
Sorry, can you slow down a bit?
Rates remission 5%, support services 40%, which is finance, legal, IT services, and Māori engagement. Governance and democracy, 16. Strategy, which is our TRMP, freshwater management 10. Economic and community development 5. Recovery and civil defence 22. Science 2. So I'll forward that on to you.
Through the chair, just to confirm that probably the main changes in terms of the dollars between that is 7 odd million for recovery. Those costs that we actually need to do for that. And also at that particular point in time, there's the enterprise management, all of program that we're doing where originally that was deemed from accounting standards to be a capital. It now has to be recorded as operation, so that's where you see the switch for those. So they're the main over and above those changes within there, in addition to what does that mean in one of the services that we provide.
It's also interesting to note that through that same period of time, from the 23 annual plan, roading was 35 million, and yet it's only gone to 49 million, which is a relatively small jump when you consider what we've been under.
Just to clarify, the roading budget, which you're not seeing the capital, that's up to 95 million.
Including the capital?
Yeah, no, not including. It's over and above. So the significant that the roading has increased is probably 300%, 350%.
So why is that figure in there at,
Because this is expenses, this is operation, that note, and so therefore you need to refer to the other part which says the capital expenditure program. So they go hand in hand.
So now just for going back to page 100, and our debt has gone up through this period of $100 million. And I know a lot of that was planned for with the waste, stormwater, etc. But just, I wonder, in $10 million chunks, perhaps, Adrienne, could you explain to us in $10 million chunks where that $100 million extra borrowing has gone?
Which one are you looking at? Page 100, and you're looking
I'm
from
looking at the
22.
graph which shows 124 million in 2023, going up to 227 million in 2026. the 100 million each they're borrowing, just for those that haven't got the paper in front of them.
So, again, yeah, you're going into the details of what we actually had, but effectively, the bulk of those, and just to actually say for 2024, the net amount, where it's recorded in that graph, on the right-hand side, council debts, and there's a third bar graph in, the net amount, why it says 177, because we had deposits in there, was 158. So that's just a bit of a timing. All of the increases, the bulk of 40 to 45 million would have been the wastewater treatment plant. Our contribution, 5 to 6 million in terms of the Kiwi Pools. Then we have also our waste management, the next part of that, that's another 6 to 7 million associated with those. So they were the bulk, and then there's pluses and minuses within our waste programs, our three waters. Our contribution to the flood protection, that is another significant part of that debt. And then the remaining part would be roading. So they basically, that you're talking, there are some elements in there that is also with the TRMP. We're spreading that loan over that 10 years when we're paying it back over, that's a short term. It's an operational deemed to be cost, but we are loan funding that. So they're the bulk of those increases. Depending on what they're for and when they're paid, they will be either over the life of the asset or life of the benefit that's repaid, etc.
Okay. Just, and sort of echoing Teddy's, Councillor Thompson's sentiments, that, we're seeing a legacy of debt here, and only seeing, the 3-year snapshot of its consequences. And even in this short term, the debt is way exceeding our predictions. What is our rate increase going to look like in 3, 4, 5, 6 years' time? Any guesses?
So the debt is a function, and the servicing of it is the interest that we have got there. And I think in the financial strategy, notwithstanding things that may change, notwithstanding what we actually have to do for the water services, that kind of things. And within the financial strategy, it said, what is the implications, where do we need to go, and what were the assumptions with the servicing of the interest, and what would that be? But that was within those boundaries. There would only have to be, and then the financial strategy said, if interest rates increased over and above significantly than what we actually had, then yes, there is a rates impact. But we had estimated that within those thresholds. So debt in itself would be not a great significant change in terms of your rates increases. It is a contribution. It'd only be that if it, instead of which interest rates, just like you would in your own personal situation, if people had a mortgage, if that went up 2 or 3% than what you had, then that's going to be higher than what you anticipated. But we have tried to mitigate most of that by having swaps in terms of like insurance over those higher rates. So we try to manage those impacts. And we try to actually forecast that, and we try to actually say, this is the kind of that debt threshold. Bear in mind, we're saying at this stage 150 compared to our cohorts, which are significantly kind of more. So we're very, very mindful of our area. What is the debt servicing, and what is the program of that within our financial strategy? Yeah.
Can I add also to that in terms of our debt, that we are currently within our financial strategy that you've set. And so at the strategic level, that is where you have the influence over what we're spending, the caps that are put on that, the controls that we apply when we're working through the annual plan. That's the place where the parameters are set around how we spend. So if you're concerned around the debt, when you take into account all the activities that we need to deliver, that's the place where we can set those parameters when you've got all the information in front of you. So we are applying what we've said in our initial financial strategy, which was debt was 175% of our income. And we're about, what, 200 more in income from recovery. So that is where we're currently at. When we go into our next 10-year plan, we'll revisit all of this again in 68.
Just a clarification too, when it was made for the employee costs, and you gave a comparison of the 2023, that net cost was 33.7 million, and now we're looking at 38.5. So it's not the 20 million quantum; it's what is that net cost?
I think 10. Yeah, it's roughly 10.
Yeah, so it's so it's 5. Yeah, 5. Just clarifying. But we've also the capital program for what it was in 23 to what we actually have now is 3 times that much. And then we're also doing a significant amount of the kind of recovery, which is just not capital. There's a lot of other.
And so on that, we have an assurance from you that you are able to claw back that $10 million that was spent on wages aligned to capital. You'll be able to claw back that when we are out of recovery.
In terms of the plans that we've actually got, they usually are assigned to those capital projects, so for fixed terms or those kind of parts. Yep. Councillor Telfer.
Yeah, first thing, just going back to our 3-year plan, we still something that doesn't sit well with me is the Gibson Holdings situation of them coming to us and saying they're not going to give us a dividend. That was in our 3-year plan. I'm wondering whether or not it's time to go back and have another talk to them, because basically farming at the moment is experiencing about a 30% increase on last year in income. So there's going to be some money there, and it doesn't sit well with me that then falls back on us, which falls back on rate increases to all our people. The debt would have been sat far better sitting with Gibson Holdings. And if it delays some of their work they're doing for a little while because they're servicing that debt, I'm just wondering whether there's a chance to have that conversation with them, because their financial situation has definitely changed.
Or today. Or today.
Yeah. That's not a formal situation, but
I agree with you, Councillor Telfer. It is time to again.
Like we've been in Teddy's board, we've been talking about our debt increasing, and it seems to be just chog. And here's one instance where we could have pushed back and said, no, if you aren't going to pay us the debt because of whatever, you borrow the money. Why are we doing that? I know we can borrow money cheaper than them or whatever, but it just doesn't sit well. So I'd like that conversation to be had. The other one is page 134. Just in the situation that we're in at the moment, with recovery and the damage that was caused, I just find it a little bit hard. I'll just get there. To look at this graph and our and see the increases in rates for everybody, and then we get to forestry and they've only got a 5.5% increase when everyone else is experiencing 10, 9 and 10%. And I'm presuming that this is because of rates are based on revaluations, and forestry valuations might have, in the light of somebody's eye this year, have come back. So all of a sudden that impacts and means that in comparison to everybody else, it just doesn't sit well with me sitting here saying, well, hang on a minute, we've got all this damage to our bridges and our roads and our beaches and everything else that we're having to clean up. And forestry is only facing a 5.5% increase compared to everybody else. So I know there's probably nothing we can do about it because it is based on valuations, but it just shows a bit of a monopoly there with the whole rating system that maybe is worth looking at, because anyway, just a point.
Thank you for that. Anyone else want to have a korero with Councillor Wharehinga?
Thank you. As I said before, I second Councillor Parata a report. I also on page 152. I don't know, maybe we take that pick today. But in regards to GHR, I do want to remind us that we approve the dividend policy, which means that they don't. It's all based on what they make. So if they make, then we make. If they don't make, then we don't make. And I think that that's the fiscally responsible way for us to do it. We've just literally heard from other councillors around this table about being fiscally responsible, and then I would hate to see us advocate for our holding company to be fiscally irresponsible. We should be acting the same way, because they're just another same room of the same building that we are, same whare that we are as council. So yeah, I think if we just make sure that we're speaking on our values that align between us as council and as our holding company, and treat them the same way that we'd expect to treat our own finances, then I think that will be sorted. But again, I do want to re-emphasise that yes, farming has gone good over this last year. So if farming is going good, then we should be, according to our dividend policy, expecting a something.
Other people that have not spoken yet, I can come back to you. Councillor Pahuru Puriwai.
Kia ora, Your Worship, thank you. A couple of basic questions, I guess, but on page 55, can you explain under point 12 to me, what is componentisation?
That's just you are breaking it down to the sum of the parts, as opposed to saying we purchased this and built this and it cost us 42 million. Now we're breaking it down to okay, there's some electrical things that won't have the same useful life as some of the others. So when do we need to replace it? So that's basically what it is.
Thank you. The next one is on page 59 under the 3G Campus Analysis, point 32, with the Te Kotahitanga Forum. So 7 iwi organisations are part of that. Is that still operating, functioning well?
Sorry, what?
Sorry, page 59, point 32. Wairawhiti Regional Recovery Plan has been shaped with input from the Unity Group, Te Kotahitanga Forum, collaboration of 7 iwi organisations.
No, that hasn't reconvened since the recovery plan was produced. Relevant. Sorry.
Yeah, so can that be corrected if it's not true? And then page 68, just on those the significant projects, major projects. I'm not sure, you might stand to be, I don't know, but I raised it. Just the deputation this morning from Pere Trust, is that where we were having that discussion? Your worship? Given is that not now, it's later?
Yeah, no, so we focused on this annual plan to pass it, and we will later discuss the deputations. Yeah. So just stay, I'm going to keep everyone focused on what we're trying to achieve, but we will have some time later to discuss the public deputations.
Okay, thank you. And then on page 70 is just again supporting what Ravania said about that age population. It's got weird, it's got lots of different breakdowns, but also that of the under 25, 39%, that 70.4% of those are Māori in our region. And that as we go forward, we've got a very young Māori population. It's a lot of, and so moving forward with the 10-year plan and that coming with the new council, there's some consideration given to that demographic as well. And that's all from me. Thank you.
Any other comments? Councillor Tupara, I'll come back to you.
Just one, most of my points have already been discussed, but on the same page as Councillor Pahuru on the infographic there, the 4 regional iwi, just questioning why Whanawakai and Ngati included in that. Thank you.
Oh my goodie, people want to speak more than once. I'm going to just say thank you for preparing this. Again, from a council perspective, we have a lot on because we are in year 2 of a budget, a plan which we all signed up to, the 3-year plan of recovery. It means more work happens. And it brings me to people that say, I want you to do this, this, and this, and this, but you cannot raise any rates. That's the saying, everyone wants to go to heaven, no one wants to die. So I know there are some sacrifices, but I also know that we have instructed our staff to do it as lean as possible, as efficient as possible, because in the end of the day, our aim is to serve our community. So it is still tough out there. It is going to be tougher once the government come with all the water regulations, so buckle up. It is going to be tough. There will be tough discussions when we start talking about roading. We don't have an easy path ahead of us. We don't. So if that is what you want to sign up, that is not what this is going to be. It is going to be tough, but we are here to make decisions on behalf of the community. Some are straightforward, some are really tough, but in the end of the day, we get 14 opinions that hopefully represent voices from our community and try and make the best informed decisions. So thank you, Pauline, for pulling it together. Thank you, Nadine. I know it's not easy. And again, from us as governors, we urge you to make sure we do it as lean as possible, as efficient as possible, because that is what our community also deserves. So I'm going to let Councillor Telfer and Gregory wrap it up for us with second goes, nice and short.
Yeah, mine's not a second go, sorry. It's just on that point I brought up about the forestry.
Oh, yes.
Rate setting. If that is the sole reason why those rates aren't going up, if you look at everybody else's rates are between 10.6% and 9.6%, so pretty, or 9.1, they're pretty close.
No evaluation.
Go to 5. If it is solely the valuations, I'm just wondering whether or not there can be a paragraph, a note at the bottom of that explaining it, because when people look at this, there's going to be a lot of questions asked, and if we can have an explanatory note of why that is, then we might be able to go.
Sure. And just to clarify that, because it is in a public arena, just to understand, and that is what would be a concern of people when they looking at only at the percentages. With the forestry per se, and while it may average on some of those things, there's 481 deemed forestry properties, of which there is between 2.5 and 23 million, there's 55 properties. The majority of the properties, over 300, are in a low value of it, so it's less than 600 odd K, and so they're small holdings. Unfortunately, when you're looking at averages of averages, and sometimes that's what you get, the amounts of those at the higher ones may be at least up to 2,000, and some of the others that we see on the medium size, there are 630. So there are very various pockets that actually come. But to give the overarching way that we say that we take from the forestry per se, and the main one being the roading rate, is to say this is the damage that we anticipate that is done on the roading network for forestry, and this is what we need to collect from you as a forestry sector per se. And so therefore we're making sure those particular costs are ring-fenced for the forestry. How it actually aligns with the civil percentages doesn't tell the true story. We also said that the large woody debris that we were collecting for that the majority of those will be assigned to the forestry sector, that over 70% of that we're collecting from that would be from the forestry sector per se. And then that as a group are collecting the majority of those costs with it. But how it lands, when you talk it as a percentage, it looks lower than anticipated. Definitely the higher ones are over 1,800 increase or $650. So that's a little bit higher. But there can be a little bit of more of an expectation. It is on capital value, and we'll say that what makes up that, they're predominantly are low-valued properties within this area, but we'll explain it. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Gregory, wrap it up for us.
quickly the page 87, the waste minimisation, the link to the website doesn't work, so that needs to be fixed. It comes up with oops. But all of the other links work. But I just wanted to, this rates, setting the rates, it means for most people in town a rise of about $400 a year. And I just want to acknowledge the people that are on a fixed income, and that is a lot of money for those people, especially when last year it was the same, and next year it is going to be the same again, to help us with our recovery. And also just remind people that the council has all the can help, and to get in early and ring up and talk to someone, because there's plenty of help available to get through it.
Very good comment. We have a remissions policy, so please, if you also, like Councillor Gregory said, need to talk to someone about a payment plan or something, it is confidential with our friendly council staff to help. Thank you for that. Got a mover in Councillor Parata. I have got a seconder in Councillor Parehinga. All in favour? Thank you.
Can I note contrary?
What are you voting against?
I want to note contrary.
What are you voting against?
I just think we're being borrowing.
Thank you. So when we do jobs next, you can't vote yes because you didn't vote for the money. Yep.
Sorry, what's that?
Okay, we are going to page 157. So this is just a standard process once the annual plan is passed. And I do assume every single thing here has been triple checked, because it is the real details that go on rates. So Pauline, even though I read through it, it doesn't make sense, because 0.00029 excluding GST.
Thank you. In terms of it, this is probably the most audited paper that we have within kind of the council. Even before it gets to Fiona, there's about 3 or 4 people that are checking it, reviewing it. We have checks and controls within the system itself, but we don't. We're also checking controls as well. The review then goes to externally lawyers to look at it, and then I will go through it again line by line, which might be a bit of annoying to poor old Fiona when we go through it, but I consider this the most important thing that we actually do in terms of setting our tax and our requirements with it. So yes, it has been 10 timed.
And I do want to take this opportunity, Fiona, you and your team, Pauline, I know there are heaps of people from the finance team as well. This has been a crazy 2 months for you pulling all of this together. So I also want to acknowledge the hard work by your team, Pauline, and if you can convey our thanks, that would be great. So this is just a procedure to pass how it will be struck. Do I have a mover?
Yep.
Seconder, Councillor.
I have a comment. I don't know if we've done it like this before, but I can see that a lot of thought has gone into how we rate people and how we rate fairly. And yeah, I just wanted to note that I could tell that a lot of thought had been put into how we rate fairly, how we can get the best out of what we need, because there's a lot of mahi that we need to do across lots of different spaces, including water, including roads, and I just really appreciated the breakdown of this, and I hope at some point once we pass it, if it passes, that when we put out documents that there can be an infographic that shows how this potentially this works for you and your household. And that might be worth putting into the rates notice envelope as well.
We do have the little ring in the rates notice showing what per day, what services you get, so it will go out.
Yeah.
The last one, Pauline?
You are required at the back of your, to have a breakdown of what your rates go for to each, what it makes up, and you have got all those different things. But if you're saying that it can be explained even more.
It would be better, yeah, that's what.
Let's-
But anyway, I don't know, was it second? I second. I think second.
Thank you. Councillor Foster and then Councillor Ria.
Yeah, thank you. I like seeing all the breakdown and everything like that, but what I would like to see in the part of the recommendation to start with is the general 9.95 increase across the board with the 3% recovery rate and the 7%. So I think if that was put there to start with, that kind of sets the tone of what's to follow after that. But without putting that in as part of the recommendation, I think I would like to see that as part of the recommendation, that we adopt the rates of overall average of 9.95 with the 3.0% as recovery, the 7% as business as usual. So
Through your worship, I just want to explain that there is a process. You have to adopt the annual plan, and then the annual plan sets those criteria out. Once you have adopted that, then this allows you to do it. So this is very prescribed, two-step process. Right. You have to approve that in the plan before you get to this, and this is based on what you need. And these are very much regimented in terms of each rate, how it is, and where it sets out. But you've had, then that's why this is set second after the adoption of annual plan before you get to that. So yeah.
So even at the bottom of this, which equates to, I don't know, but I mean, people are going to look at all this, they're going to go, what the hell? But if you say at the bottom, this is what we're proposing, and this is what it equates to, a 9.95 increase. And
what paper are you, Councillor Foster?
I'm looking at the recommendations, and I'm looking at all the different. 58. I'm looking at the recommendations. I'm looking at all the 158. Sorry, all the recommendations and how they're all broken down. But the average person is going to look at that. Well,
it's not for the average person. Won't look at it. Number one, the first thing that says, having adopted the annual plan and that report, so you refer back to that report, and it says funding impact statement. So you can only set those rates in terms of the funding impact statement and the annual plan. So it's very prescribed of what it refers to, and you can't take it out of that kind of the concept. So that is the very first basis of setting these rates. So, and that's where we try to explain it in the discussion of where it arrived and what were the different plans. So we refer to that, but pretty much those recommendations have to follow a prescribed format, and you refer to that opening paragraph.
Yeah, right.
But in our comms, Councillor Foster, we can make it clear. What you are trying to say is, even though this is a standard, but in our comms, when we do, let's break it down so people understand. Is that clear? Okay. Councillor Ria, thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. There was like the largest list of recommendations to go through, and I read all of them and thought, yep, makes sense, yep, makes sense. The only one that made me go was the water availability targeted rate on page 163. So if I got this right, water availability, for example, the main water pipes run adjacent to Manutuke along Te Arai. So if you are within 100 metres of those pipes, but you choose not to access that service, you can still be charged a rate because it's available to you?
Yes. And it's 50% of that. It's set in legislation in terms of the availability charge, and with it, yes, that is correct.
So if it's not feasible or not viable for a family who can't afford to actually put the infrastructure for a 90-metre ditch to connect themselves to those pipes, so they choose not to do it because of the economy, they still have to pay that rate.
That is correct, but Fiona can talk about the technical and where it actually affects and where we actually apply it mostly to.
It would be where the connection is provided but not used, so that infrastructure, council have already provided that infrastructure to the pipe. It would be if from them wanting to do it to the house, to the road. But yeah, they would select not to use it, we would charge an availability. It's more in the city where you've got, say, like a a subdivision development and you've got all of those, like 10 properties in a street, and 5 of them have got houses on and the other 5 have got houses yet to come. The houses that are yet to come, but the services are provided to those sections, would be included and paid, they would pay an availability charge.
Yeah, I get that. I suppose just in the example of Manituke, to pay the water availability targeted rate, the water connection targeted rate, that the availability after the, so they pay the availability, but then their water was shut off, for example, after the cyclone to provide water for the city. So then they still get charged. So I don't need it, because I know that this is not the plan, but just to think about in terms of that water availability targeted rate, that there are situations where rural, and I'm speaking specifically for Manituke, and there could be other examples, that they have that accessibility, but then the accessibility was removed from them and then given back at a later date. So how does that affect what they would pay on that specific rate? And that was my only question. It was just about, I wasn't sure how that water availability rate worked.
Okay, so Councillor Pahu.
Thank you, Your Worship. On page 161, it just talks about, can you give me an example of a non-subsidised local road? What would be an example?
Passenger bus, passenger service.
Oh, okay.
Or if it's the non-subsidised, might be wharfs. If anything's under the roading kind of things, but doesn't, you don't get any far rate on the thing, so it's mainly, separate from those.
Thank you. That was exactly what was opposite to what I was thinking, so that's good. And then page 162, can you explain what a rural township is? So is that just those within the township itself or on the outskirts as well? So an example, like Hitaki Township, does the rate also extend to Rangitukia, Poroporo Valley and other places?
I'll let Fiona answer, but most of the ones we define that within the maps.
Oh, sorry.
DRA. Some of them maybe, but I'll let Fiona just explain that probably a little more in details.
So it is a defined area that's been circled as such. So it doesn't include the rural township, wouldn't include the bigger, wider rural areas. But we haven't got those as maps in our system, but we can look at providing those maps. Or
yeah, that would be helpful, I think, Fiona, just for clarity for people. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Got a mover and Councillor Wharehinga, seconder and Councillor Parata, all in favour. Carried. So we're going to take a quick 5-minute break.
Because we do have a presentation.
Oh, we do have a presentation. So thank you, councillors. I take you to, are we back on, Pere? We take you to page 169, and this is a huge paper which we have workshopped before. So it is not new to councillors, but there's a lot in here, Tim. So Nadine, I'm going to hand over to you, and then we will take it from there.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. And yes, you have workshop components of it, and I do acknowledge it was quite a dense piece of technical report to work through. So you will be relieved to know that James is going to summarise it succinctly in his beautiful PowerPoint.
Fantastic, James.
And acknowledge the NZTA for contributing and funding this program business case. It came out of our discussions with them as part of our roading recovery and our issues associated with our difficult roading. So I'll hand over. Tim, did you want to say anything before James starts?
Kia ora, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak this morning. This programme business case has been more than a year's worth of work to get to this point. So hence the very dense document that you see before you today. But my role is to try and summarise that document as succinctly and briefly as I can in the next 10 or so minutes. So really the programme business case is about long-term roading resilience. So how do we anticipate the challenges that will be coming at us from severe weather and climate change, and how does our roading network stand up to those and therefore help our communities to function and thrive? That's really the key to it all. So it's not about the here and now of recovery, it's the 30-year time frame. And resilience risk is really about the exposure of our roading assets, that's the roads and the bridges, to those long-term climate change hazards. And on the right-hand side of your slide there, you will see there are 6 hazards that have been assessed in this business case. And all of those assets are, to some extent or other, vulnerable to those hazards. So the exposure plus the vulnerability effectively gives you the level of resilience risk. And this business case has undertaken a lot of detailed technical work to assess both the current resilience risk as we understand it and how that might change if we invest money in a different way to how we do it at the moment. And that's really the key to it all today. So the PBC is a prioritisation framework to make better use of existing funding. It is not a bid for additional funding, and at this stage is not proposing specific projects. That's really, really important to understand. All of that work will come through future asset management plans, the long-term plan, and the next regional land transport plan. So today we're looking at the prioritisation framework. How do we make better decisions with limited funding? There's some key challenges. So you probably don't need me to tell you all of these, but the district has a very low population, small economy, low rating base, and a vast roading network, really, really large for the size of the population. And that's a real challenge to fund and maintain. And spending on the roading network has been going up, but the roading network condition generally, and particularly in the rural areas, has been going down. And one of the key reasons for that is that in the last few years, the amount of money spent on emergency works, that's reactive works, to repair damage as a result of severe weather or other issues such as heavy goods vehicles, has been going up, and it's consuming a greater proportion of the maintenance, operations and renewal budget. And that ultimately is not a sustainable position to be in, because what it means is there is less money to invest in actually improving the asset and bringing it up to a standard where it can actually withstand the rigours of usage and climate change. So this business case is all about rebalancing the way that funding is allocated and prioritised. And one of the key things in any prioritisation framework is road importance. So how do we prioritise where we spend limited money? Not every road can be as important as the next road. So how do we do this in an objective and fairer way as we possibly can? So in the technical work through the business case, which was undertaken by consultants, they put together a road importance prioritisation framework, and they looked at 4 main factors, so lifelines, culture, social and economic, so all of those are really important factors in their own right. And then there were a number of sub-criteria under each of those factors that enabled every road link in the district to be scored against those criteria, basically from 1 to 3, depending on how that road link was able to contribute to, for example, economic growth. And so the result you'll see on the right-hand side is an assessment of both the rural and the urban length of road and which importance category each one falls into in terms of length. So, for example, the highest importance category for rural roads is 24 kilometres, for urban it's 35. And you can see as you go down the table, the different lengths allocated against the different importance categories. The interesting one really I think is at the bottom, where you have 793 kilometres of road in the lowest importance category, which is nearly half the rural roading network. And one of the key factors is clearly how many people use that those roads, and generally speaking, the lowest importance roads, it's under 20 vehicles per day. That's kind of the benchmark around what we're looking at. So very, very low volume roads. Another key aspect is levels of service. So once you've determined the importance of your road, the next question is what level of service does the user of that road and the communities that depend on that road expect to get? And levels of service effectively range from A, at the very highest level of service, which you generally see on roads that are very important, very heavily trafficked, all the way down actually to F, which is in effect, this is a road that is no longer going to be maintained because its importance is simply not there. We simply don't have the money or the priority to say this is a road we need to maintain. So going through all of those, you've got the availability of the road, so making sure that it is available as much as possible and giving clear standards for what happens in the event of a road closure, how quickly it can be reopened, and also the safety and accessibility. And the higher the level of service, the greater level of safety and accessibility you have for all users. As you go down the level of service, more care needs to be taken at driving on particular roads because they may be unsealed, narrow, windy, whatever it may be. So this is a way of effectively categorising your level of service and then deciding what level of maintenance is necessary to ensure that level of service is created. And what this graph on the left-hand side shows is the current level of service in terms of the percentage of urban and rural roads. And what you'll see is, generally speaking, the rural roads, most are currently in levels of service C and D, and urban, generally, most roads in B or higher, it's mainly B, and C. So there's a clear difference between those two categories. But that's the current level of service. That won't necessarily stay the same as we move forward. On the right-hand side, there's a table which effectively sets out what the target and minimum level of service needs to be. You know, the target is clearly what the council would ideally like if there was funding available. Minimum is what is the minimum level of service that keeps the road functional and as safe as possible. And minimum is what might need to happen if there is insufficient funding to be able to get to the target. What you'll see in this table is that for the highest and high importance categories, the levels of service for both urban and rural pretty much stay the same for both target and minimum. The changes happen when you get from moderate down to lowest, and generally speaking, the rural level of service declines as you go from moderate to lowest, whereas the urban pretty much stays the same. Again, that is just a reflection of the level of usage and importance of those roads. In terms of where to intervene and what the priorities are, the table on the left-hand side effectively says the highest road importance and the highest resilience risk are the highest priority for investment. So that's in those red squares. And you move through that matrix. So the next one is orange, through the yellow and the green, which are effectively the lowest investment priorities, may not get much, if any, funding at all, other than maintaining to a very, very basic standard. So this is just a way of demonstrating how importance and resilience risk need to be thought of together to understand where the intervention priorities need to be. The map on the left-hand side I'll come back to in a minute, but essentially it's been split into four areas of the district, with Gisborne City being one in the black lines there, and other three districts. Basically, those reflect different river catchment areas, and they're being used to assess where funding needs to be spent. So this is a very simplified table of the four programme options that the consultants, WSP, have undertaken their technical work on. So very briefly, status quo effectively is what we're doing now, which is to continue to patch up the roads. The other three options are doing things differently in certain ways, but all of them involve effectively trying to prioritise either socially and culturally important routes, in the case of resilient communities, or strategic routes, in the case of those economically important routes. The balanced reach is trying to, as its name suggests, balance prioritisation across different types of routes. Now, the rest of the columns from 3 to 6, or 3 to 7, effectively each of those columns is a trade-off. So it's a question which says, what are we willing to trade off here in terms of these different programme options? So column 3 asks the question, for each option, how much of the existing roading network will we maintain? And for 2 of those options, it's 100%, so all roads will be maintained. For 2 options, that actually goes down to 90%. So in other words, 10% of the roading network is effectively retired from maintenance and from usage, all bar very, very local access. With the next one, we look at, well, what are the priority hazards? So we've got 6 hazards we could possibly address. So the status quo in strategic routes options just say we're going to prioritise the flooding and the storms, because that's what people perceive perhaps to be the biggest challenges. The other 2 options actually look at all of the different resilience challenges. So that includes things like extreme heat, tsunami, etc. So again, there's a trade-off between those different options. Priority areas, so some status quo, for example, says, well, we're going to make the whole region a priority, we'll just try and spread it as best we can. But other options say, well, actually go for the highest population areas. Where do most people live, and where is most of the travel demand? In terms of hazards, the different options, some look at vulnerability, so we'll concentrate on making the assets less vulnerable. Others try to reduce exposure, and balanced reach tries to do both. And finally, the level of service. So what's the maximum level of service for each option that could be achieved? So the target level of service, for example, in status quo is only for urban roads. No other road will get the target level of service. If you go down to balanced reach, that says we can achieve the target level of service for roads in the highest population areas. But we can't do it everywhere, and no option can actually do that everywhere. So what I want to just show is what the preferred option is. There's only a couple of slides left, so this is where it gets to the point of our recommendation. So this map, these 2 maps effectively show before and after the balance reach. So the map on the left-hand side is effectively what is the resilience risk now, and the key colours are really the reds and the oranges, and to a lesser extent the yellows. So those are the highest levels of risk. So reds are extreme, high is orange, and those are the areas we really do want to address. The right-hand side is effectively what happens to the resilience risk after the balanced reach programme is implemented. And what it shows is that a lot of the red and the orange in particular is removed from various parts of the region. So not only Gisborne city itself, but other areas up the coast. And the residual risk, i.e. what's left after your investment, for the red and the orange, tends to be at the very extremes of the network before the roads actually finish. You'll also see that a lot of the yellows in Gisborne City go to greens, and the yellows generally are reduced in the urban areas in the townships. So it's just a brief illustration of the predicted change as a result of the Balance Reach programme. So in terms of our preferred option, effectively then the Balance Reach programme says that the residual resilience risk all roads is medium or low, so we get rid of the extreme and the high. The exception being the roads of lowest importance, where that risk remains. Roads in the urban area of Gisborne and key communities generally have high levels of service. That is also the case for roads with lifeline importance, so access to ports, hospitals, that kind of thing. But the roads with lower importance clearly have lower levels of service. The 2 points at the bottom, which I pretty much want to finish on, are really key to all of this. So the benefits of this business case have been estimated over that 30-year time frame that I talked about at the start. However, the implementation really needs to happen primarily in the first 10 years. So in other words, we can't just delay and think, oh, we'll do it in 10 years. In 10 years' time, if the assets are not made more resilient in that period, then actually the costs and the disruption will be a lot worse. So the first 10 years of the programme is absolutely critical to the success of the whole 30-year programme. And the second point just really reiterates that. The benefit won't be achieved if that preferred investment approach is not adopted within the next LTP period. So whilst 30 years might seem like a long time away, actually the time to act is pretty much now. So in terms of the final slide then, the next steps. So this programme business case needs to go through a peer review process. That's an NZTA requirement. So there will be an opportunity for an independent consultant to come in and challenge and question the technical work that's been undertaken to make sure it is robust. On the assumption then that that all happens fine, final council approval and submission to NZTA is planned for the August council meeting. And then, arguably, the real work actually starts. So things like a full review of various policies and potential changes on the basis of the business case will be required. And as I mentioned, in terms of actual investment, it's the regional land transport plan, the activity management plan, and the long-term plan. So they are really starting to kick off in 2026 and early 2027. Primary planning starts now. And what we're looking to do is effectively make the resilience programme at the start of the next LTP and RSDP period in July 2027. And finally, a word on community engagement, because that is something that is clearly going to be critical to all of this process. So this programme business case has had various discussions at Community Hui. We've had a Participate survey, which has provided some very interesting feedback about community concerns and priorities. But adoption of this business case doesn't mean that community engagement ends. In fact, it's only just starting. And that really is a key point that I want to make. That, this business case is not saying this is the plan and there's no opportunity now for it to be changed in any shape or form. All we're saying today is this is our prioritisation framework. This is the way we need to try and look at how we invest in our ready network, and we need to bring our communities with us to make sure those priorities are then realised in practice. Thank you.
James. Okay, should we open the floor for some questions? So what we are asking of today is that if we sign this off, it will go for peer review with NZTA. So I'm going to open the floor. I saw some hands on this side. Okay, we're just going to start. Teddy, go. We're going to come around.
Yeah, thanks for that bit of work. It's a huge bit of work. I was reading it and it's full on, and I'm thinking, shit, someone's actually had to write all this, so it's the easy part reading it, and that was a mission, so yeah, take my hat off to the WSP and who wrote this. It's good to see this piece of work. We've got 1% of population, 3% of land, and it's poor land. The bottom line is we can't afford to maintain the roads we've got. We got the PGF funding, we got big payout from Gabriel, and we keep getting propped up. But I think we need to realise we can't just keep borrowing money, we can't just keep getting propped up, and we need to bite the bullet and realise we need to actually have a plan in place that is viable and can move us into the future. And so it's, yeah, I totally support this. Going to get peer reviewed, and I'm happy we finally sort of realised we can't maintain what we've got to the level of service that people expect, and we're dealing with it rather than just keep borrowing money, keep expecting government handouts, and we're actually dealing with it instead of kicking the can. So yeah, happy with this.
Councillor Thompson.
I'll move it.
You. Councillor Tibble, you don't have to speak. I'm just coming. It's saving me some brain space if I don't have to remember who's next. We can come back to you as well if you rather.
I'll just jump in here. Thank you very much. I was going to say that, but no, I just want to mihi to the quality of the work that's in all of the reporting to get us to the distilling that you've just shared, and thank you for the way that you've walked us through what this actually means after going through all of that stuff. I think it's exciting that we've got a way to be thinking about managing our roads. I think it's true that we have the current state because this is the job of the council to be able to look after the roads, and the multiple states of climate change that continue to impact us. Is great to see that there is a way by which we can hone in on how to actually do something effective. I'm mindful too, this level of debate and dissection on the corridor allows me to be able to go back to Waipiro whānau and be able to say, these are the methodologies that we use for it. It's not always happy-chappy for us, but by the time this program is agreed to and kicks in, these are the limitations of what council can actually get forward doing. It's this level of understanding that is not understood by our people in the regions, and it's incumbent upon all of us, not only staff, to be able to make sure we help our people understand the limitations of what is possible. So thank you very much. Kia ora.
Yeah, thanks for that. Music to my ears. I mean, it's no secret that the roading network in this area has been our major concern. And it's recognised, and it is even in the urban sector, that we've had long-term repairs and maintenance rather than absolute fix-its. And I think we really do need to look at the proposition that we might need to spend 2.5 times more to get 5 times more life. And I think that's where we need to go. Because at the moment, I mean, I drove along Childers Road just the other day, and it was a bounce from patch to patch, and we're always spending money on the likes of Childers Road. So if we had done it 16 years ago properly, maybe the cost would have actually been less to us. And I think that's where we've really got to focus. And when we go to our contractors, perhaps part of their tendering, and I feel for them because they're probably tendering, trying to get the job and coming in low and doing a repairs and maintenance job. But perhaps they have got solutions in their heads, or their ability to have long-term solutions, but they're not putting them forward to us because they're obviously going to be 2-3 times the cost. So the life cycle of our network is what we've really got to look at now. And if that life cycle is much longer, meaning a spend up front, we really do need to try and figure out how we do that, because the inefficiency of the spend at the moment is a huge cost to us, and it's not doing us any favours at all. I mean, through the paper, it does talk about long-term solutions, and lifestyle costing's not always taken into account in the decision-making, so it does recognise all that sort of stuff. So I'm grateful to see that, and really hoping that we do move on to getting a better roading network right throughout our region. somehow. Thank you.
Kia ora, Your Worship. Thank you, James and the team. I know you've worked really, really hard on this, and it's been a challenge. And I appreciate the depth of work that's gone into this, and also your straight upness in terms of explaining the situation that we're currently in and why we need to do things differently. I appreciate that you've had been able to look beyond where we're at right now into the 30 years and provide a plan to go forward. I just wondered about some of the language. So when we say things like lowest importance, all roads are important to the communities who use them and rely on them. So I wonder if we might change that language to lowest usage, which makes more sense to me because there's less than 100 vehicles using the road, and that says that we can't, doesn't make sense to invest in it the same way, rather than importance, because that's always, oh, that hurts me a little bit because my road's important, which is important to me, but it's not necessarily important in the wider scope of things. And just another jargon that has come up, pavement, which is a road, eh? So when we're doing comms out to people, if it's, I know when we had pavement, people thought it was a walkway that was being, it wasn't a walkway, it was actually the road that was being worked on. So those just little things that populate this with our communities, that they are words that are not causing further confusion or distress. I'm happy to second the report. And again, just a big thank you for the mahi that's gone into this.
Thank you. Thank you. I do like that preferred option, the balanced reach program, but there was just one thing in it, in the document, which I was thinking maybe is not quite correct, and it's on page 334, and it talks about a traffic and parking subcommittee, and I'm on that with Andy Cranston there. We've done one parking thing in 3 years, which was the police station. And since then, I've seen like parks move, and they went from being a park to being a drop-off point. And I often think about that traffic and parking subcommittee and why it's there and why we're on it, and maybe it shouldn't be there at all because it hasn't been used.
Depends what the delegated authority is when a change is made, if it's needed to go through a committee or if it's just a staff member that can make that call.
So is it important to have something that reviews once in 3 years?
We can review that when we have the post-triennial elections.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I also want to commend the amount of effort and work that's gone in there, and although it is a fairly technical document, it's very clear. I'm most grateful that there's a consideration for all the different kinds of communities that we have, from central town right to the very edges of our roi. And I think it's timely that it comes in now because we have a further report there on sustainable land use, and I think the context of this fits with the context of that. And also, I'm not sure where this came from, but Mo Te Ao Tūroa Ngā Rongoa, just having this kind of thinking in the bigger picture for council, that you're aware of these things and the context of this has a wider context, and that context is coming up. So I congratulate you on the timing of this, and it will go back out to community, the thoroughness and the clarity.
Thank you, Councillor Tupara.
Thank you for the report. Although I have to confess, I had 1,000 pages to read over our holiday weekend, and I did skimp on that and drift over something rather quickly.
What about AI?
Apologies if the question I ask is two questions. What's the notification process going to be for some of these roads to be shut down? And is there an appeal process that will be followed for those people that are shut down?
Through the chair, that's something that will need to be worked out. We haven't gone into any level of detail about that. That's one of the reasons I said that's why we need those policy review and changes to go through those very questions. So that's something something that will be addressed in the next stage. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Ria.
Kia ora. Thank you for the report. I must say the last workshop we had in here that was around roading was dire.
Dire.
There was like nowhere to go but things we had to do but nothing to do it with, and thank you so much, because I read it and I didn't understand a lot of it, and you gave me a bit more clarity this morning, but what I did see is that it was smart. It was specific, measurable, achievable, relevant and time bound, and it gave us a clear pathway forward. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Yeah, I was originally going to move it, because reading through the whole thing quickly. It was a big paper, a lot of duplication, but yeah, no, very thorough, and I think it's just a sensible way of going about our program for the next 30 years. Yeah, we've just got to be harsh, we've got to be real, and we need to make sure that we do invest in the roads that are utilised the most, and maybe using better quality material. I mean, ideally, it would be nice to have bitumen on all our urban roads. That's probably not a reality, but at the end of the day, bitumen does last a lot longer, so over a 10 to 20 year time frame, it's probably a cheaper option rather than having to go back and rehash and redo chip seal all the time. But anyway, that's the ultimate goal, I guess, so I'll leave it at that, but I'm always happy at the whole program, and it's certainly the sensible way of going about it. Thank you.
Councillor Telfer.
Yeah, three things. I'm just, page 192 mentioned community engagement is going to be essential, and I think that's underestimated. I think that is, there's already talk out there in the community, and I'm getting it in my left ear about you're going to be closing our rural roads. So we're going to have to do a real good comms job there. Well, I don't mean a comms job or a con job, I mean a communication job, because there's going to be real angst out there, so we're going to have to be very clear on what we are talking about. The next piece was page 208 around the new maintenance contracts, which will come into effect 2027. Now 2027 is not very far away, 18 months, and I'd like to know that we as councillors are going to have some real clear input into that, because I think those are discussions we need to have around our current contractor program of how we allocate contracts and who they go to, what the criteria. I think that's a real area that I'd like sooner rather than later to have some really good discussions around, because I think through our cyclone and some of the work that was done by some of the private contractors, and I'm not saying all of them, showed that we can do some things pretty efficiently. So I'd like that sooner rather than later, because that comes around really quick, and then next minute we're getting contracts or programs put in front of us to approve. I think we need to have some really good discussions around that. So that's that one. Around the WSP process, through the thing, it mentions population, number of people on these roads. Now, I just want to know, as the economic contribution from those roads, because as soon as you start moving out into the country areas or rural areas, your road up there it's not servicing a 20 hectare block on the side of the road, it's servicing thousands of hectares out. So economic contribution to this region can be, if you just base it on population and whatnot, can be really distort things. So I just want to have some clarification of whether they have looked into that at all, because I wouldn't think it has been, but I think that's a real important thing, because yeah, sure, the road might be a long way up there, but the contribution coming out of there, as far as economic to our town and to our businesses, is going to be crucial. So I'd just like a bit of a clarification whether that has been done. And we're talking about closing. We've been talking about in different workshops we've had and whatnot around moving metal roads to sealed roads because it's cheaper to maintain and everything else. But we've had some real concerns lately from different people coming out of areas around that are sitting on sealed roads that currently aren't being maintained. So if we're going to go and talk to people about turning their roads back into metal roads that will maintain them, we've got to actually make sure we do it. I think communication around the whole program is going to happen. We need to start doing that pretty smartly. It's me.
Councillor Parata.
No, I feel like the councillors have well and truly asked all my main questions. The only one thing I did have was just in addition to perhaps Rob's thoughts, is he talks about economic contribution. I think there's also a part of cultural significance. And that might not make sense to us right now, but long term, as our region develops, as our country's brand develops, we have some of the most culturally significant places that tell an incredible story here more than anywhere else. So I don't know if that is important in terms of the conversation around roading infrastructure, but it should be on our radar at some point to make decisions that will have cultural impacts, tourism impacts, long term. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Wrap it up for us.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks for the report. Also, thanks to yourself, Tim, for fronting up to the community so often and having these face-to-face, really difficult conversations about their roads and the future of those roads. They're forthright and they're very frank discussions, and I think that's what needs to be the ethos by which we have these discussions moving forward. From kind of like a big bro approach, a tuakana approach, you know, the communities, our individual communities know which roads could probably go back to being gravel. They know which roads in the areas would need to be prioritised. If you asked everyone, they'd want every road prioritised, but at the brass tacks level, they know, like they all know which parts to prioritise. So I'd like to endorse the continuation of that kind of energy and spirit in those conversations with those communities. I wanted to just highlight, I love the paper and I think that it's heading in the right direction. I'm just a little bit worried when we use words like a balanced reach. So how do we know we're achieving balance? I do worry when we have two priorities and then we prioritize one exposure and one vulnerability, and we prioritize both, because when we prioritize everything, nothing becomes a priority. So I'm a little bit worried in regards to that moving forward, which is why it's so much more important for us to have those strong, frank conversations with those communities in order to be able to help them achieve the balance that balances their exposure risk or their vulnerability risk. So I did want to ask your thoughts or feelings in regards to where you think this might land with NZTA, because we're endorsing this to go back to NZTA. So a strong chance of them being like 1 thumb up, 2 thumbs up, 5 thumbs up.
High five.
Yeah, high five.
Well, as funding partners on this, we think they're very supportive of it, but they also recognise NZTA, I guess, are fond of one size fits all for the country, but they're also aware that our region feels a lot of the challenges of the country more acutely for reasons that everyone in this room knows. And what I would say is really nice to hear feedback, and we're very grateful to all of that, and the work that's simply putting in front of us what we sort of knew but didn't have the data to support. And when you have run a network, what you have is an awful lot of information that only when you step right back from it do you get that visibility of, and what this has been telling us is that this is unsustainable, because it's, despite all the efforts we put in and the occasional prop-ups, we've been sneaking back. But we want to actually address this in the positive part. So by making the decisions in the balanced reach and that need to engage our communities, they will need to be very professional, very pragmatic ways that we undertake those decisions. They'll need to go into depth. They'll need to consider all the cultural and economic aspects that are coming up. And one thing we haven't spoken too much about is we've considered everything as equal, but there is potentially some parts of the community that can fund more. So this is considered as funding as a set thing, not necessarily the case. And we're having those conversations with industries everyone in the room will be familiar with too. So, and if they have corridors that are supported, then they support those communities that are also on those corridors. So this is a live approach.
Thank you, Mr. Pere.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, James. Thank you, Adrienne. We look forward to hearing feedback from NZTA at our August meeting. I've got a mover in Councillor Thompson, seconded Councillor Pahura. All in favour? Aye. 3, none. 449, councillors. Councillor Wharehinga.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Hey, I'll lead this paper because it's this was my paper. So I just want to, I'm happy to move the recommendations because I chaired this bylaw committee. But I do just want to point out that on page 451, those were the parts of the statement of proposal. You can see that they were very straightforward. We debated them vigorously in conjunction with receiving the community feedback. Yeah, and I'm happy to move this paper. Sorry to get ahead of you there, Charlotte, but I did give Charlotte the heads up that I'll be jumping straight in there. I already have my prepared speech.
Oh my goodie, you guys are on fire. So I've got Josh and Aubrey. So then I'm going to do Teddy. You are next.
Yes, I was on that committee. There's nothing controversial at all. That's all pretty common sense.
Thank you. Debbie?
No.
Nothing awkward. Annie?
Just seconding it.
Rowenia, were your hand up, or was it Aubrey?
Just one clarification, and it was around aesthetics. So page 451, and it's mentioned in 468, but can you please define aesthetic requirements?
So in the draft bylaw itself, sorry, I'll just scroll down part of it. We've outlined some particular bits. So there was a real key focus from council around the hate speech type of things on the headstones. We obviously have the matter that has been decided by central government around gang insignia, which is so that in terms of putting it into the guidance around aesthetics, that would be in there as well. Apologies, it's a little bit. So the inscriptions, imagery and designs just on the front side of the monument was the other one, and around the imagery size being 240 mils by 200 within a bit of a yeah. And then, like I mentioned, the hate speech, profanity or symbolism which discriminates against groups.
Yeah, cool. I just wanted to make sure that the aesthetic requirement wasn't so strict that people can't do what they want to and need to do on their fund.
What they can afford.
Yeah, and that was definitely a matter that was kind of debated a bit as it came through to the statement of proposal, and then addressed again at the.
And then just a supplementary, the gang insignia. I know that that's already moved in central government, but there will be a place somewhere that explains that to our whānau who will come in.
Correct. So the intention was, obviously we don't give people the bylaw because it's a hefty document, so we'll have a guidance document, and we also give that information to the commercial operators who create these monuments, so that they're aware of what our guidelines are as well.
Awesome. Okay. No, that was all support.
Just a quick round of reply.
Before you do a right of reply, any more kōrero around this? If not, straight back to you, Councillor Wharehinga.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and an important part you bring up there, Councillor Rea, and just to reiterate that a big chunk of the design stuff will be provided in the cemeteries guide that Ms. Knight had outlined around what's permissible, what's not, and the rationale why, and all of those kinds of things. Again, one of the things that we debated at the hearing as well, and the staff were able to implement. So thank you very much to staff. Thank you very much to the committee for helping us bring this across the line. And thank you to all of the people out in the public who submitted to this one.
Thank you for that. I've got a mover and Councillor Wharehinga, seconder and Councillor Pabu. All in favour? Aye. Carried. Thank you. We didn't have an opportunity to say a word. All good. Now we move to the very, very chunky and very impressive piece of work, Sustainable Land Use Transition Guide. Kiri, we will give you some time to get here while we go to page 496. Nadine, I'll hand over to you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. I'm really proud to be able to present here the Sustainable Land Use Transition Guide, which was Kerry and Lisa, who's sitting down there, instrumental in the creation of it, and we've had the support of John Hutchings to facilitate the process, along with Dean Evans, one of our other staff members, that has helped facilitate and coordinate quite a diverse group of representatives, multi-mixed land use types, to create these guidelines, and it's really helpful, particularly with our erosion-prone land. So, made in Tairāwhiti, for Tairāwhiti, Bridges science and farmer experience and forestry alongside us as well, and support the landowners without the bureaucracy. I'll hand over to Kiri.
Thank you, Kiri. Thank you, Nadine.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yes, no, Nadine's noted that really nice, and I'd really like to commend Lisa Gooch on putting this thing together for us. She's just been back with us at the right time to do so. Really important it's been locally put together, and everyone we've got on this group, from his CEO mentioned, from a lot of walks of life, have got a sustainable Tairāwhiti for the future. So it's really cool. It's been a very collaborative approach. We started August last year and put this thing together. We've got 4 scenarios that we outline, and that's outlined in here. So we're looking at all land uses across Tairāwhiti, and we look at a range of solutions. So it's not as if we're dictating what is the best. People make a choice on that, and providing it's going to work, we'll support them on that. Part 1's got some really interesting case studies of a range of people across all land uses, and they are really helpful going forward. We are getting a very positive reaction to the fact of what the TAG has produced at a national level, and we're putting together the business case and delivery plan, which John Hutchings and the rest of us are putting together at the moment. It's a very collaborative approach, and we are getting some really good recognition on it. So more than happy to answer any questions on that, and we feel it's very positive, and the next step is
Thank you. Thank you for that. Councillor Ria and then Councillor Orr.
Kia ora tātou. Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to acknowledge the writers, collectors and researchers who put the report together, and to acknowledge and extend a mihi to all the experienced contributors. I was extremely impressed by the level of contributors, all expert in their fields, all born and bred here in Te Tairāwhiti, including environmental, climate change, kaitaki taiao, large-scale farmers and smaller-scale farmers, and to see their contributions and acknowledgements to them throughout all sections of the document. The report will be a very valuable resource to our community as a whole in regards to strategy around the transitioning land to vegetation cover, and it was awesome to see how, although they're representative of many different fields, they had some real on-the-ground advice for people who want to look into uptaking this mahi, and it supports so many of my own personal aspirations for the environment. So I just wanted to acknowledge the writers, the contributors, Ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa, and I will move the paper. Kia ora.
Right. Well done. Councillor Alder.
Well, I couldn't say much more than that, thank you, but
Nice. Well, then don't worry about it.
You want to second the
That's
paper?
all of it. And I'll happily second it. And
Nice.
Nice. A great piece of work, and I hope we share it out of region. It's applicable to.
So at the national level, how we're dealing with the mailing issues, this comes to the forefront and it's seen as a very positive step. That initiative that we've had support from our CEO on, and going forward they see the council as contributing.
Councillor, oh my goodie, look at all the hands. I'm going to do Teddy and then come back to those two and then hop over to Ani.
Yeah, thanks for the report. I learned a lot from it, like just Manukau wetter areas, Karnaka dry areas and all that sort of stuff. But the thing that really stuck out for me was they all had their little parts and the lessons learned. And the one thing they all sort of had in common was like pest control.
Yeah.
It's like, don't look at how many trees you can actually plant. Look at how many trees you can manage, and that's the bit. Even though they've all got projects, that's the bit that sort of is similar with the whole of them. And it's good to see them all on the same page. Basically, like it doesn't matter what you plant, you gotta manage it, and pest control is huge.
Thank you. Next we're going to go to Councillor Foster and then Councillor Telfer and then go to Councillor Papa.
Yeah, thank you. No, that was great reading, and certainly some really positive work that's happening in this space. And yeah, congratulations to all involved. It was fantastic. There was a concerning thing on page 676 with facial management. I read about the facial source tracking has been undertaken in rivers and streams in Uawa, Whenua.
There's no next report.
Oh.
Yeah. There's the C's report.
Those two. Sorry, my
No worries. No worries.
Right, but anyway, that was a fantastic thing.
If ever computer's making noises, kill it. Kill it. Next is Councillor Telfer, then Pāhuruhuriwai, and then Parata. Thank you.
Yeah, look, I appreciate the work that's been done and the reasons why it's been done around this land. But I also look at the cost of some of this establishment, and if you look at native establishment, what's been done at Wainaki as an example, and that's what we're using as an example all the way through, that's been subsidised a hell of a lot through the government, subsidies and whatnot. If you imprint that on people and say this is what you've got to do, we need to be very careful who's going to pay for it, because at $4,400 per hectare, it's basically half as much as the land is even worth, or more, so I just want to keep things in perspective. And then also, you're talking about the Wainaki, Teddy just mentioned it, the ongoing pest control that has to be done. We've seen what's happened up around Kumaras. Every extra area that we let go, if you haven't got pest management, you're just marking time. So I just want to keep things in perspective and realise that it's all lovely to do and it's great, but where's the income coming from to pay for that pest management over time, ongoing? And I think we just need to keep that all in perspective.
I can comment on that, and you're on the money, Councillor, in terms of the costs that will be required to transition to sustainable land use, and that's the second part of what we're working with this group. We have now moved towards our business plan, and that business plan, the business case is a treasury business case basically to be able to put to government. We are working with forestry and farming to quantify the issue, and so it won't be it's quite a significant sum that we'll be looking for in an investment over a long period of time. That business case is tracking to come to council in September, and then we will lodge it with government and work through that system as we do with as we have done in the past with funding bids. So that picks up. Hopefully, we can use some of the funding that's there already, but also trying to appropriate more funding from government to support us to transition. Includes pest control as well as part of that.
Yeah, and I think as part of that, we've also got to look as a regulatory body, is around enforcement, because what's happened around our area, and if anyone's lived out in the country surrounded by forestry, which I was for about 17 years, the behaviours that have happened that have created one of these major pest problems I'm talking about, deer and pigs, is shutting up properties as private hunting grounds, forests as private hunting grounds, not letting people go hunting, and the whole thing has exploded. So we need to take a little bit of responsibility ourselves for that, because we need to actually find ways of actually making some of this stuff compulsory, not just used as playgrounds. Because it's we don't want to have to come in here every X number of years in our region 1080. We've had to do it because things got to a point where we're going to get out of hand. But I just think we need to, as a regulatory body, we need to put our big boys' pants on and actually maybe look at some regulatory control.
Yeah, and certainly Councillor Thompson and Councillor Telfer mentioned this pest control is critical, and we need to keep that going. And there's certainly some attitudes need to change on it. Overall support from all walks of life, including forestry and farming, that we need to get the people involved. So within the group itself, we've been achieving that. But you're quite right, that is the fundamental step. There's no planting something with the first 5 months. We need to keep it moving. Quite right.
Councillor Pahurihuri, why?
Along the same lines, it's great to hear that you've got the business case being prepared. I thoroughly enjoyed reading after the heavy piece from your previous report. It was nice to read the business case studies that are in there, and to see because I've heard about different projects that have been happening, so to actually read their learnings from it is really great, and that they're consistent, as the others have said, around pest control. And does our business case study also partner with our treaty partners around that? Like, I know that Okumura Pai Maunga project, you got the Jobs for Nature, those all come to an end in the 30th of June, I think. There's a whole lot of trained people out there in pest eradication, and it would be, well, not just a shame, a catastrophic if things are allowed to go backwards in terms of the amount of pests that have been able to come through projects. So I think the guidelines that you've done and the background work that you've done is really great to back up the case study, the business case. So good luck with that.
So I think key function of the whole thing is that we are very supportive of the work that's been done in Raukaras and a continuation of it, and initiatives such as Jobs for Nature. What I think we also need to consider is when we involve the likes of John Hitch and this case together, is we have examples throughout the region where things have worked really well. We just haven't got enough of them. But we don't have to reinvent the wheel, and a lot of what's in this, particularly in the case studies, tells us these are the right steps. We just need to replicate them a lot further across the region.
I just have a quick comment. I echo all of the things, the compliments that councillors have already said and acknowledged the experience. I read this document and couldn't help but think how awesome it would be as an educational resource. And I seem to remember there were parts of the Milu that indicated that there was an opportunity for this mahi, the thinking about transition, to influence the way curriculum and our tauira here in Te Tai Rāwhiti might engage in environmental spaces. I truly hope that when we print that, we also send them up, because I can really see value in growing our next lot of kaitiaki into these spaces. So yeah, that mostly. I'm really impressed in the way, I'm really impressed with the expertise that we have available to us. It's deeply impressive, and I see it as an approach, as the many opportunities that we have to consider what our whenua might be doing, how to look after it, how to have it there, looking its best, being its best for generations to come. And just acknowledge that while things are changing a lot in central government at the moment, they will change and change and change again, but the approach that we have in region can and will be enduring. So that's all.
Thank you. So one thing I wanted to say was really, really impressed when I opened up those reports, and you know, they were in different sections guiding people through what they need to do. And we are at this place because we do need to change what we are doing. But I also today want to acknowledge that it is not easy. It is going to be a tough journey for lots, and I do applaud the staff working on our funding request, because certain farming practices or forestry practices or what you have done over decades now might need to change slightly, maybe more severe, and that's tough. And what Councillor Telfer said as well, it will cost people. So I also want to acknowledge the groups and the feedback that went into that, because we can really say it was varied and everyone, every sector had a say, but that does not take away from the fact, even though we now have a roadmap, it will still be a difficult journey. So kia kaha, thank you for the great work. We look forward to receiving that funding request and also then lobbying government to support us, to support our region to transition in a way that what Councillor Parata said, we want to leave our place in a better spot for our kids than what we found it in. So thank you very much. Okay, I do have a mover in Councillor Ria. Thank you, Councillor Ria. I have a seconder and Councillor Alder. All in favour? Aye. Contrary, carried. Thank you, Kiri.
Thank you.
We are moving through stuff.
Yeah. Here we go.
We're going to the Chief Executive's report on page 641. And as always, I'm going to break it up in sections. I have my page numbers written down. So we're going to start. Nadine, did you want to open up?
Through your worship, so there's been a lot, as usual, over the last period of time. Apologies around the recovery update information. There was just a timing issue around when we get our monthly reports out. So you might have recorded last time we had quite a good graphic illustration. This time you've got a whole lot of words and narrative. And that's just because we completed our monthly report on Monday. So the timing was just off, but it would have been really great to get that to you. I am planning on having at the next council meeting, we'll just do a bit of a deep dive around recovery and where we're at, just check in to date. So we'll do that. But I'll just, as the directors can be prepared for responding to your sections. Thanks.
Okay, we are going first to page 646, which is our central government updates, local water done well, emergency management improvement program, resource management reform, or review of national direction. If councillors have any questions on those, now is your time. Otherwise, I'm going to, you need to put your hand up. If I'm not going to see hands up, I am going to hoof it on to the next section. Thank you.
I'm just, the local water's done well, and in this it says that, like, it hasn't been approved what we've decided, has it?
Well, it's only in September, due.
It has been approved.
Sorry, so the preferred operating model has been approved in terms of the business unit.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. I was just concerned because in the annual plan it sounds like it's all cake pie, but I thought it was still to be approved. But that's great news. Thank you.
Sorry, the only caveat on that is that our water service delivery plan, which we needed to, which we are currently developing, which will be with you and as well, with tracking too, that needs to be approved by the minister, DIA anyway.
Yeah. But the model.
Yeah.
Okay, so next I'm going to go into climate change. We're on page 652, councillors. So that is the climate change regional speed management plan. So everyone would have seen that the Pamarau Okitu remains at 60 kilometres per hour after NZTA consulted with the community. I don't know if it's in that report, but I will share it with you. Any questions? It's only page 652. Let's do emergency as 653. Recovery is 654, which Nadine has just said she will do a deep dive at the August meeting just to update councillors on recovery because the timing of the report did not coincide with the council meeting. Is that correct?
Yeah, but I can just comment that majority of works, so Cat 3 buyouts are on track. There are just a couple that we are working through, and we may not get one across the line. We definitely may not get one across the line. Another one, we are probably going to be looking for an extension for that settlement. So we're tracking well in that space, and then also just to note in terms of the woody debris funding that we are close to signing that contract with NPI for the additional funding there of 27 million, which also does allow some works to be done behind the forest gate by way of basically a grant funding process that the advisory group, which comprises GDC and NPI and some forestry representatives that will oversee the allocation of that.
Okay. Councillor Thompson and then Councillor Kruger.
Page 655, it's got 2P properties, it's got 7 confirmed they don't wish to mitigate. What are the sort of...
They don't want to.
Yeah, they don't want to lift. So the 2Ps for the raising of the houses.
Yep.
Yeah, so must have advised that they didn't want to raise their houses. Oh, so sorry. They may not have chosen that particular pathway to fund the raising of their houses, or they may not have raised them at all. I'd have to just get a bit more.
So they're not made to raise them, that's a personal decision if they raise them?
Their own decision.
Could be retaining walls as well.
Councillor Gregory.
I just wondered, in terms of the Whenua Māori properties, where is that reported?
Nothing to do with that.
That's used to...
It must be reported somewhere.
Yeah, so that would... This is the cyclone recovery unit, which is expanded and they're moving into Department of Internal Affairs. And that was reported separately from them, that cyclone recovery unit, to
Okay, whakawhanaungatanga. Oh, Councillor Thompson.
Sorry, I just had a couple. I mentioned last time a lot of people made noise to me.
Speak up.
Last time a lot of people made noise to me in relation to no geotech reports or supporting evidence. Did we... Yeah, sorry, I never followed.
What page?
Well, those pages you said in terms of the category 3.
Category stuff.
Three homes. And I've had a couple of people come up to me. It's probably my fault because I haven't followed up with an email. I sort of forgot about it. But have we looked into that, if there is actual geotech supporting evidence? Because they're saying they're asking for it and they're just getting told they can't buy the house, it's getting demolished, and that's all they're sort of getting told.
So maybe that's best if you put the detail and then they can...
Because we're not responsible for the method by which that happens. All we do is we are the grant funder of that. So they provide the invoicing back to the team and we will pay them based on the work. So we just need a bit more information.
I think it's more people, or one of them's someone wanting to buy the property and he's saying, you're saying it needs to get pulled down, but you're not showing any reason why, apart from someone said it has to come down.
Yeah. Pauline, did you want?
Oh, just the category 2P, if they are doing mitigation, they'll have to have a building consent. And in order to get the building consent, they'll have to have a geotechnical report or some evidence to describe what of their mitigation is suitable. And certainly all the things that have come through to us to ask for the grant funding, because they have to have an invoice associated and they pay. They have had whole geotech reports.
Yeah, my thing is, shouldn't council have some sort of geotech report to say, to back up saying this house is in dire straits? Like it seems someone's just said it is, but there's no supporting evidence, there's no geotech or anything to say, hey, this hill's going to go, or anything else. It's just someone said.
So if you can put that in an email, because we're now asking questions blind, specific stuff, then staff can look into the specifics and get back to you. Would that be okay?
Sorry, I was meant to do that.
That's all good.
All this paper.
That is all good.
Just a cheeky question on page 667, looking ahead, carryovers of 13 million being...
We're not there, mate. We're not even close to it. We're in 661. Whakawhanaungatanga.
Way ahead of myself.
Yeah, so we are... So we've just done 654 with the recovery, which you said next time we'll get a...
Yeah, I think it severely understates how the report just really doesn't give you the magnitude of the work that's happened to date. So what I might do in the interim as well is just flick out, get our operational report tidied up and just email it out for your information too.
Okay, so relationships, co-governance, Waiapu JMA, Waiapu catchment. Any questions in regards, Ani?
A question, just to acknowledge all the work that goes on behind the scenes to make these things happen. I know that JMA was stalled for some time, so it's good to see some movement in that space, and all of the work that's the mana whakahono arohe agreements that are happening as well, that are in train, and just a big mihi to the team for all of that work. I know it's not easy.
Apologies, I missed the boat that I wanted to speak to. Was just before relationships, but it was just to acknowledge staff and since the announcement of Te Atanga Mahaki wanting to engage in the mana whakahono arohe, there's been so much work in the background done in terms of almost all of the things: roadside drainage, Te Karaka flood resilience. So under almost every one of those headings that we've just passed now, I just want to acknowledge the staff on how much they're working really hard to keep that relationship strong. We've been in some dire straight times with Te Atanga Mahaki, and it's really nice to see that it's at a really good working. It's working for both the council and the iwi, and that relationship is blossoming, and it is leading to some really great foundation contributors for the mana whakahono arohe. So I just wanted to acknowledge that there.
Thank you. Okay, we're gliding into 664, which is general management, personnel management, health, safety and well-being, financial reporting. 664. Colin? No, you were 667. You can Colin, just go for it. You don't have all your excitement anymore.
I'm supposed to be somewhere else.
Go. Give it to us.
Just a question around the 13 million carryover. It's a lot to be carrying over, and it's a sign of how much work we have to get through. But is it possible that there could be some savings made out of that 13 million that we might look forward to?
I would have to look up again just to refresh what was in that 13 million, but there were a lot of those were capital works projects.
They're pretty set up.
They're pretty set. But, I just we are trying to pull back in operations. We did say in terms of that last paper that we had around the water levies in the last council meeting that we would look to absorb and reduce costs, which was about 217,000 internally. So we are trying to.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, page 667, which is the focus projects. PRMP, environmental science, township upgrades, community facilities, Resource Recovery Centre, Deliberations. Councillor Cranston.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. Just some clarity around the indoor stadium. We've got a cost estimate there. We've also got a couple of things there that are the northern wall and the roof. The way the roof's written up, accessible for emergency civil defence. We've just spent millions on a civil defence unit. I think the indication was that it was going to be a sort of a place to keep your feet dry in a tsunami, but then it's hit with 1.69 million, so it seems like a very expensive thing. How much research has been done on that to see whether it's essential or not? Because if it is for tsunami, I wouldn't want the community running towards the beach.
Yeah. So that's the, through your worship, that's the vertical evacuation route. So like all of these costs, they're only really early figures. And we probably need to kind of get to a detailed design before you're anywhere near close approximation of some rough water costs. So yeah, at this stage they're so
rough estimates.
Rough that we can't really pin anything down until we do it a bit more. But Ben would have looked at this in comparison to what it might have cost some other facilities in Australia. They're used as a comparison point to get a marker or an indicator of what that would involve. So there's probably a bit of structural work because you're going to put some capacity loading on the top of the building, and that would require some strengthening.
And that's over and above the indicated cost of 22 million.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. What is the northern opening wall? The northern opening wall. What is that?
Remember that was the back wall.
The back wall.
Just
Make it a bigger venue in the summer time.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Back wall opening.
Got the haka and stuff like that.
Yep.
Okay, gliding into biodiversity.
You, Larry?
Go, Larry.
Right, page 676, under TRMP research, freshwater management. Yeah, just a concerning thing about facial source tracking has been undertaken in rivers and streams in Uawa, Wainui, Kapura, Whakapata, Tarahiru and Walkway. Results show 12 of 14 samples of facial indicator bacteria.
Fecal, not facial. Nothing on your face.
Well above recommended recreational thresholds.
Pretty indicator.
Give us a moment to calm down. While we laugh about the facial tracking.
Oh shit. Twice.
Fecal meaning poo.
Yeah.
Not fish.
Facial.
Fecal.
Okay. No one heard your question.
I was too busy trying to pronounce
Fecal.
It means shite.
Yeah, anyway. My question is about the sampling. When is that sampling done and how often, and is it consistent? Because, that's, we know there's work to be done on these streams, but there has been a lot of work that has been done on these streams and rivers as well. And one would have hoped that some of those levels wouldn't be still as high as what they are. So, and I think it probably determines when these samples were taken, and if you've got winter sampling and summer sampling, there's possibly a difference. I don't know, but that's why I beg the question.
Yeah, good question. Charlotte, do you know the answer to that?
Yes, I have some of the answers. I'm not a scientist. I'll just add that little caveat first. So we do so there's a sort of normal science monitoring program which is under the State and the Environment Report, and part of that is around E. coli, but that doesn't necessarily go into tracking where the sources of E. coli come from. So this has been an additional piece of work we've looked at as part of the TRMP program, so it's over and above what we would normally do, but we do still have BAU kind of sampling and testing as part of our responsibilities in that space, which really ramp up over the summer period, and we have the reporting responsibilities around the safe swimming that goes through the LAWA network as well. So it's really clear to our communities where it is safe to swim. If that was one of your concerns. And in terms of understanding, I guess, the type of E. coli and where it's coming from, that's really useful in that policy and planning space. As you'll know, through the regional freshwater plan, we've been looking at the types of rules that we have and knowing the types of sources that potentially comes from helps, I guess, refine the types of rules that we could look at and have as ways of mitigating it, and can then mean lots of different things depending on the different sources. And then obviously there's also, when you've seen the human fecal contamination as well, particularly in our urban areas, there's that crossover into the Drainways program, which we've obviously been working really hard on as well as a council. Hopefully that answers
Are those readings consistent though? I mean, do they change?
in terms of when we test, yeah. So I think Janet potentially might have mentioned this yesterday when we had a similar question around the E. coli levels. So at the time when we take the test, we make a note around the types of conditions it was in, etc., and that's considered alongside the sample too.
Obviously in the rain, and a heavy rain event will be worse than what it would be in the dry.
Yeah, so in terms of this as well, one of the key focus areas while we did this extra testing was actually around understanding the sources as opposed to just the levels as well.
Yeah, right, okay.
No, I'm not a scientist.
Okay. We're coming to an end, so if you had a question and you missed the bus, you better ask it now. 684, Councillor Gregory.
Thank you. My question is around the Creative Communities Fund. And when does that news get released about, so it says of the 19, so it says that there's been money distributed, but where did it go and when does that come out?
Through the chair, I can come back to you with that information, but it gets distributed after the approval letters have gone out to the people in the applications.
Oh, so they don't know that they've got it yet?
They will have gone out, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then do you do a media release or something?
Well, we don't traditionally do a media release.
But
It would be great to know.
We should.
Yeah, we should do something so that everyone knows who we're giving money to and what it's for.
Good news stories.
Yeah.
Councillor Alder and then Councillor
Thank you.
Foster.
Backtracking a little bit, and it's page 679 on the Whenua planting, and I have brought it up before, but have we got a seeding trial for Manukau? And if not, why not?
We should ask Amy. Amy, do we have a seeding trial?
Through your worship, we don't currently have a seeding trial. We did plan to have one last winter. However, the drone operator and the company that we were working with had some issues with their CAA certification at the time, and we missed the weather window that would have been ideal for doing that seeding trial. So we are back to the drawing board with that at the moment. It is something that we would like to progress with.
Thank you. Councillor Foster.
Thank you. I'm going to be a broken record, and there hasn't been an update on the 1,000-year bridge in our CEO's report, but we've got it here as a funding option. So I'd just like to get an update of where we are. And I was past here this morning actually, and it looks like half of it is open because the barrier from the Titirangi side has been put down or thrown down to the bottom of the road. So that side's open, but the other side's still closed. So yes, could we get an update, please?
Yeah, certainly from the last time this issue came up, there's been quite a significant report on this, and we're hoping to close it all off before the end of the financial term of this round. And, yeah, watch this space, it should happen very soon.
Is there any time frames?
Weeks, probably.
Thank you.
Months, yeah.
Cool. So now
it'll have a stage to go to fabrication, but we certainly can get to that fabrication within weeks.
Okay. So the half end being open and the other half not is from someone throwing the barrier on the road.
It's unfortunate.
Vandalism.
I hope you have reported that via RF.
Oh, I haven't actually.
Well, you should. Because how does council know about it? No, my friend, it's not open yet, so while these barriers up there and they've pushed
There's
open.
people using it all the time, so.
Did you push it down? Yeah. Now we know what's going on. Nick just said the CCTV camera will get you. Okay, any last questions or comments on the CEO report? Thank you for that, Nadine. We look forward to the recovery. This brings us to the end of our open council meeting for today. Thank you, Colin. We'll see you next time.
You're going to have another meeting now?
I'm talking to that Colin. I wasn't saying goodbye to you. I was saying goodbye to that Colin. Is like, I'm packed up, I'm out of here. Goodbye to you too. Okay, I move we go into public second by Councillor Wharehinga. All in favour? Carried.